Happy Friday. Brooke Grimsley alongside Danny Mac and Matthew Rocchio, and we have Randy Karraker with the week off, but we did get to see Randy last night. How's everybody doing this Friday morning?
We're doing well. It was a fun night last night at the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, the induction ceremony, and Randy went in, so congratulations to our very own Randy Karraker, who is now a St. Louis Sports Hall of Famer, and well-deserved. Very, very well-deserved.
And Dan, you did a wonderful job emceeing the event and also interviewing Randy Karraker. I like the way that you did it because, as we know, Randy Karraker can talk. He's obviously in this business for a reason.
Just let him go.
Yeah, you just teed it up so that he could have his moment.
Absolutely, and he knocked it out of the ballpark, and I loved what he talked about is that one of the things that he said is that there are so many people in this business that look at Randy as being an influence in their careers, and whether it be myself or you or Matthew, Greg Amsinger, there's people all over the industry, television, radio, even in writing and reporting that have either been around Randy or interned for Randy. And as a guy that worked under Randy for a long time at KMOX Radio, he kind of took me under his wing. He was one of the guys that I could go to and say, will you listen to my tape, and what am I doing wrong? I used to do sports in the mornings, and this is when Patrick was just a little tyke. I would call up Randy and say, did you hear me do the report at 7:45, and what'd you think? I mean, literally, I'd call him up at 7:45 in the morning. That's how stupid I was to do something like that, but that's what I did. And Randy would give me a critique over the phone, and I'm one of hundreds of people that he's done that for. So, Randy, if you're listening, congratulations. We love you, and it's well-deserved.
He's very honest and kind, and that's typically a very hard balance there. But you're right. You know, Dan, I've had some moments here, some growing pains when I was switching over from TV to radio, and Randy has been such a help because there's a lot of moments where I thought, man, this is really tough. Like, I messed up. You know, I feel bad about what I did. And Randy, and that's how it seems like he approaches everybody when he's mentoring people, was able to really lift me up and encourage me. And that's something that I think is just so... I wouldn't say that it's unusual for this industry, but it's rare
it's
that sometimes...
unusual.
Yeah.
It's unusual.
You definitely have had more experience than I have, but you know what I'm talking about. Is
Absolutely.
That sometimes it's unusual because it's also a competitive business,
Exactly.
so everybody's looking out for themselves.
Cutthroat.
But Randy always takes the time to look out for others, too.
And Jay Blossom went in, a high school basketball coach. You had Webster Groves. You had Kelly Chase, who was the final inductee for hockey, and Tyson Nash was in town and did the interview with him. He had, we had Dave Dorr. We had Neil Ivey from basketball. She's now the head coach at Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. Steven Jackson, football. Steven Jackson without the dreadlocks, we should mention. Looked like a different guy. Celeste Kinnearman in softball. If you're a softball player, you know you've been probably touched by her in some form or fashion with pitching or hitting or running. She does a lot of different things, especially when she was at Merrimack. The Koppler family, which basically they started Channel 11, and Channel 11 had wrestling at the Chase. They had the Cardinals. They had the Blues. They had the Hawks at one point, so they would put that on over-the-air television. Ray Langford went in for baseball, and it was great to see Ray get back in and and be a part of this community again, because I think things have gone really full circle for him. He played on some bad teams in the 90s, and he was the best thing going on those teams. And if you look at his numbers, he was an awesome player, and I'm glad to see that he got the recognition he deserved with the Cardinals Hall of Fame, but now gets the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame. We had the Tom Lombardo chapter for football, and then Kenny Schrader in auto racing, and Kenny Wallace inducted him. But the Blues are really well represented last night. Brett Hall was there, Tom Stillman was there, Al McInnes was there, Alex Steen was there, Otter was there, Tony Twist was there. I know Jeff Brown was there. I know I'm missing some guys, and I apologize for that, but they were very well represented, and it was just a special night here in St. Louis. It's why we love this town. That night is a celebration of why we love sports in St. Louis.
And the story that I kept consistently hearing over and over again is how much those people also love St. Louis and how much it meant to them and helped them in their career. I loved all the stories of how people really got to that point. Kelly Chase, also a very emotional interview because of everything that he has been through and how he has battled. But that's kind of been the story of his career, right?
Absolutely. And the first guy I saw when I pulled into the MAC, I get out, I'm walking into the building, and there's Kelly Chase with a huge smile. I thought he was going to hit me. He's like, ah! He comes up, gives me a big hug, and we talked for a little bit, and it was great to see Tyson Nash. I haven't seen Tyson Nash in a long time, and when I was doing the Blues for a number of years, he was kind of a central figure that when things were going wrong, I could go to a guy that would talk. It would be Tyson Nash. Or you go to Kelly Chase, or you go to Tony Twist. But these are great guys. And to see that, the way that they represented the Blues and the community last night, and to your point, how much they love the city. And really, like, the one that got me a lot, I thought he was great, was Steven Jackson.
Oh, my gosh.
You know, when you saw Steven play for these awful teams, he probably wasn't in the best of moods all the time in the locker room, but he was just so cerebral in how he looked back on his career and what he's done and what he's doing moving forward and helping people find sustainable living and jobs, and what he's doing in Vegas now, and using his platform the right way. And a lot of these people use that's the other thing I took away, is that they have a platform, they use it properly, and they're trying to help out people, which is really cool.
I grew up an Eddie George fan, so I've always been enamored by the big kind of monster running backs and what they're able to do. And Steven Jackson is also another one that obviously sticks out in my mind. And when you're talking about kind of Ray Langford and teams that were not necessarily great, and that mentality that you kind of have to go through, Steven Jackson spoke about that. And it seems like, yes, there was times where it was hard, but he never let it affect him.
I don't think you can when you're in that position. You know, you try not to, but eight consecutive years of 1,000 yards. And we had him on the air last week. He is in my mind, he's a Hall of Famer. If you look at the numbers, he won't get in because of the situation, I would imagine, here in St. Louis, and the teams are so bad, and they were bad. But his numbers should put him at least in the conversation for the Hall of Fame.
And for me, it's when you hear 8,000 straight, or 8 straight 1,000-yard seasons, and then it's not just that the quarterback and the wide receivers were never maybe the most effective after like 2004, but it's that, I mean, the offensive line every single year for a decade was a talking point in its utility, in the lack of consistency.
Every single game.
In every game, they're putting 8 in the box.
Yep.
They know he's coming. And yet fans here complain because they're like, why is he dancing behind the line of scrimmage? Because Todd Stussey's still playing right tackle for some reason. And Adam Goldberg is on his 3rd year straight of playing a different position after playing left guard, right tackle. And now he's your freaking left tackle. Barron can't get off the line without getting a flag thrown on him. What do you want the guy to do other than dance behind the line and find a freaking hole? It was unbelievable what he was able to do when you think about the teams that were around him. It's unfathomable.
What stood out for you last night?
Sanders. I mean, Jackson was amazing. I personally, just like as a kid, I worshiped the guy. I joked around with Randy. I'm like, it's not healthy how much like this guy held my like emotions in his hands when I was like 12 years old. Because if the Rams lost, I was a wreck, and if they won, I was the happiest person in the world. But also, just we heard a lot of. If you heard our Kelly Chase interview that we played earlier this week, and if you want to go here, you can go back to 101ESPN.com and listen to all those interviews, including our one with Steven Jackson. You heard he had a lot of great stories in that interview, and that he told last night as well. But he added a couple, and it's just I could listen to Kelly Chase talk for 3 hours, and I don't know if I would get bored for a single moment of it. That was unbelievable, and honestly, a lot of the moments gave me this. But then hearing Kelly Chase talk, and if you again heard our interview and you heard him talk about how one of his proudest moments is when he realized that he was a St. Louisan and how much that affected him. And man, it's not hard to get me to want to run through a brick wall to talk about how much I love St. Louis. But man, put me in a room like that for a couple hours, and I'm ready. I will go to bat for this city for anything at this moment right now. There's nothing that makes me love St. Louis and St. Louis sports than listening to all those athletes, and specifically, man, Kelly Chase. There's a reason why that pump-up video is so legendary in St. Louis, because I walked out of there with so much damn STL pride, like beating through my chest. It was unbelievable.
And Randall. Don't forget about Randall.
Of course, Randall. I mean, obviously, Randy was incredible.
Yes.
And hearing him talk from the broadcaster side and how affected he was by Jack Buck personally, and how he took that effect from Jack Buck and, you know, he turned around and he brought other people up the ladder. And that's the biggest thing in this business. Having talent usually means you have an ego. And a lot of times having talent usually means you use that talent to pull up the ladder behind you. And Randy Karraker saw one of the greatest of all time help people below him, and he decided, well, that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my career, and that's exactly what he's done.
Absolutely.
It was just such a great event, and you did a wonderful job, Dan, and they also did a wonderful job over at the Missouri Athletic Club downtown, and congratulations to Randy Karraker and the rest of the 2024 St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame class. As we were talking about the pride that we have in St. Louis, Dan, it is a jam-packed weekend. So you have the Cardinals in town, obviously, for a 6-game homestand starting with the Mariners. Eric Fetty on the mound tonight. You also have the Ascension Charity Classic, and you have City SC facing off against the New England Revolution on Saturday night. And if you go over to Como, not too far away from here, Mizzou hosting Buffalo, another sellout. And, Dan.
Yes.
NFL all weekend long.
Oh, I love it.
This is a fantastic
Including
weekend.
tonight.
Yes.
Including tonight. They'll be playing overseas tonight. Last night, NFL did not disappoint. Is there anything better than the reality TV that the NFL is? I mean,
oh my gosh.
We get home from the event last night. We get to check out the final, 15 minutes or so of the game. And that's really all I needed to see. It was awesome. I went back and watched some of the highlights of what we missed. So can't do a deep dive on the game, but I can tell you the last 15 minutes are the best reality TV that you're going to see. There's nothing else on television that was better than what you saw last night in the NFL.
Exactly.
It was awesome.
Yeah, no, it really was. And we were at the event. Now, I will say, in true Randy Karraker fashion, and we were listening to you, Dan, we were paying attention to the interviews, but I do have to confess.
I've been watching on my phone.
Randy was watching on his phone.
Was he really?
He was watching the game on his phone. It's Randy. You know him. You've known him for so long. Are you surprised?
No, and at your wedding, if there was a Cardinal game going on, I guarantee he was watching the Cardinal game. Had to be.
100. There was, because I think they were facing the Rockies that weekend, so I would not be surprised whatsoever. I actually strategically, not kidding, put him near towards the exit in case he did want to sub out and go watch the game. But he was watching the game last night, and so I was able to peek over and see a little bit what was going on. And as you mentioned, when I got home, we were able to see the end there. The Chiefs were able to beat the Ravens 27-20, and it will be known as the toe game because it literally did come down to a toe.
Yeah, literally an inch. Isaiah Likely was ruled out of bounds at what could have been the game-tying score for the Ravens. Instead, it's another win on national TV for Mahomes and the Chiefs, who are now 57-14. Well, let me say this. Lamar Jackson is 57-14 when not facing the Chiefs. He's now 1-5 against Patrick Mahomes. 1-5, and it was interesting how they did or did not use Derrick Henry in the game. Maybe trying to find the right fit with him as they move forward. I know you're disappointed. He was on your fantasy football team. He was your first pick.
Pain. Yes.
It was tough to watch it, how they used him.
I was kind of hoping that you would leave out the first pick part because I definitely got a lot of flack for that, Dan, but, maybe rightfully so. I'm telling myself right now that they were holding back a little bit with Derrick Henry, and by the way, this will probably be a rematch or we'll see later on that we'll have a rematch in the AFC Championship game because there was a lot of positives for both teams. One, Xavier Worthy is living up to the hype. He is so exciting.
He's
to
awesome.
Watch. He is. And then you have Rice, what he's able to do. So offensively, I liked what I saw from Mahomes and crew. And then you look over at Lamar Jackson. I was surprised because we talked so much about the rushing attack going into the season with the addition of Derrick Henry. I was surprised they didn't utilize him maybe a little bit more. And Lamar was using his legs a lot. My big question, and this is just week one, is, is this going to be sustainable for Lamar? Because when I did go back and watch highlights, I noticed they talked about how he lost some weight. And anytime I hear that about a quarterback, he's very mobile, but then I worry about, man, he was taking some licks last night. Is that going to be sustainable for the rest of the season?
I think that every year, though.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
He does it every year, some way, somehow. But is it sustainable? I mean, you'd rather have him out of harm's way, that's for sure. But he is so much fun to watch, and so is Mahomes. And now you add Xavier Worthy to a Chiefs team that has all these weapons anyway. Kelsey did have 3 catches, but Xavier Worthy, his first touch in the NFL, goes for a touchdown. He had another situation where they got him outside. He scores with his speed. You have Andy Reid, who's just an incredible head coach, and will find the best ways to get his best players the ball in the best potential scenarios and situations. They will find a way to use Xavier Worthy, and that kid is fun to watch. It's going to be incredible to watch that offense again, maybe even get back to the level that they were with Tyreek Hill. I mean, that's what I was thinking when I'm watching him. I'm like, there's Tyreek Hill. There they go. They got another weapon. It's going to be amazing to see what they can do this year.
And they still were able to win without Tyreek Hill, too, after he left. So as Dan mentioned earlier, you have the Packers and Eagles in Brazil tonight, 7:15 kickoff. And we also talked about this weekend, the Ascension Charity Classic, one of my favorite events in town. And coming up, Danny Mac has a great one-on-one interview with Jay Delsing as he gets ready to play in the Ascension Charity Classic this weekend. That's next here on 101 ESPN.
Along with Brooke Grimsley and Matthew Rocchio, I'm Dan McLaughlin. And before he even hits his first tee shot at the Ascension Charity Classic, he stops off in studio here at 101 ESPN, and that's Jay Delsing. Jay Bird, great to see you.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, man, Friday morning. Let's go. We got a little golf to play.
All right, little butterflies going on right now?
Oh, yeah.
You ready to go?
Can't wait. I don't know how it was for you when you played, because I know you played college baseball. I can never eat that much, and you're out on the golf course for 4 hours. I try to eat a little something, but it's always like, oh man, I just want to get out there. I like having a little bit of an empty stomach too. So yeah, I'm excited, man. I can't wait.
So the Ascension Charity Classic is here. What has this week been like for you? You had the pairings party on Tuesday night.
Who emceed that? Do you remember?
I emceed it.
You did a great job.
I appreciate that. A lot of fun. Then we had the 3 Pro-Ams, one of which I was able to caddy for you. You're hitting the ball great, so I can't wait to see what you do this weekend. But what's this week been like for you?
It's Danny, to a degree, it's almost surreal, because you're part of this Ascension Ambassador program like I am. We work a lot of hours on this thing, man. And now all of a sudden it's here, and you're like, wow, okay, it's here. I mean, we've got, I don't know how many different skyboxes. I don't know how much corporate support, but it's unbelievable to see what Norwood looks like. And folks, if you haven't ever gone to a golf tournament, you got to check this out. It's a party, but it's a community party. And what I mean by that is all the monies that we're raising here, you guys, is all for North County. There's North County Charities involved. There's PGA Reach. There's the First Tee and many, many others. But this is really about St. Louis as a community. We're using golf as the venue. We got world-class players. We got Hall of Fame guys that are here. But it's about the community. And that's what, Danny, to me, makes it so much fun, because golf is unique like that, man. Everybody uses golf to raise money. You've got your own special needs golf tournament. I think it's your 23rd year. You've raised over $5 million. And you know what? Why didn't you pick a basketball game to do that? Because golf is just right for this stuff, right?
It is. Let's say that you're somebody that's out there right now and you got a ticket, you've never been, and they've been, let's say, to the PGA Championship at Belle Reve.
Yeah.
Probably a hard comparison, but what's it like going to PGA Tour Champions event to what a normal PGA Tour event is like? What is it like from your perspective?
I love it. You know what? Get yourself out on the golf course and go to certain areas. Go and stand around the tees. You're going to find areas where you are literally going to be 5 or 6 feet away from a Hall of Fame golfer, and you're going to get a personal look at him hitting his driver or putting or whatever it is. The Champions Tour is so much more chill, Danny. The guys, all those rough edges, not all of them, but a good portion of those rough edges have been rounded out. And this is just, the guys have really, really great attitudes. And you're going to see some phenomenal golf. Go out and watch Bernard Langer, the greatest Champions Tour player of all time, to watch the way he goes about his business and does his thing. It's super, super impressive. And guys, so go out to, I'm going to tell you exactly where to go. Go out between the 6th green and the 7th tee. You got to walk up a hill, and you're going to be right there watching some of the players. They're going to get within a couple of feet of you. You just don't get that opportunity to hang out with, athletes like this very often, and say hello to them. They'll say hi to you. That's not like the regular tour, and it's you're going to get to see John Daly out there, and that's always.
You never know what you're going to get.
No, and that's what's fun about it.
We just hope he stays.
We hope he stays around for 3 days this year. So it's super, super fun, and I think you're really there'll be some specific thing, Danny, will be a big takeaway for you by doing this, by getting this close to it and seeing it. You'll be like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how small he was or how big he was, or I couldn't believe the sound when he hit that iron. It just sounded so good, or the ball went so far, or whatever that is.
Yeah, you mentioned mentally preparing. So is that visualization you go through?
Yeah, there's a lot of visualization. There's a lot of, Danny, one of the biggest things that I prepare for is when we play. Hell, you and I played last week, and we played in less than 2 hours, or maybe it's a fraction, either just under or just over 2 hours. The biggest thing is this is going to take long time to play. I mean, it's going to take over 4 hours to play. And we just don't do that when we play, especially at Norwood. The pace of play, even with the membership, is very, very fast. So that's one thing, to not get antsy, because I don't like waiting around, So got my daughter on the bag. Mackenzie's in from Alabama with my grandkids, and my son-in-law is here. And so we're going to get to hang out and get to spend, some cool time together as father-daughter. It's going to be a blast.
And she's never done that before.
She has not. This is the first time.
What are your emotions going to be like?
Oh, they're high.
I bet.
They're high already. I start thinking like me, let's not. Look,
Are you going to cry?
Probably.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, probably. Why wouldn't I?
You cried everything else.
I cried everything else. And my daughter's like, Dad, I'm like, leave me alone. You already know the answer. The hardest tee shot I've ever hit in my life was that first one, 3 years ago. The very first, the inaugural Ascension Charity Classic. I hit the inaugural shot, and I'm like, dear Lord, please go forward. I don't know where you're going to go.
You're like just everybody else.
I know. Please go forward. And I hit a good one. So, yeah, it's a hell of a lot of fun. You know what else, Danny? This is the culmination of a lot of work from a lot of people, from the volunteers, the H&S staff, Dan Sullivan, Tim Heitman, Alonzo Bird, Maggie Kehoe, Connor Bradley, Ellen. We've got a lot of people that have worked really, really hard on this. The Norwood membership has been highly, highly involved. We got the state of Missouri. We got the governor who was with you on Tuesday night, Mike Kehoe and his beautiful wife, Claudia. And I can't wait for them to run our state. We are super, super lucky. So I don't know. Danny, what about the fact that on Tuesday, when you emceed the pairings party, all of the products were Missouri products? I thought that was really super cool. And Scott Hovis down at the Bureau of Tourism told me that. I'm like, wow, holy, that's really cool.
Oh, they made sure it had a Missouri touch to the Ascension Charity Classic. Now, I got to go back to this.
Yeah.
Okay, your daughter's on the bag.
Yeah.
And if you ever watch CBS, and Frank Nobilo will be our guest on Golf with Jay Delsing this Sunday, who's a commentator for CBS. So say you're watching CBS Random Sunday, and they lay out, and all you hear is the caddy and the player talking to each other. Now, that's normally strategy, Jay.
Yeah.
Is this going to be like father-daughter arguing, or what are we going to have here?
Oh, my daughters and I very seldom argue. We argue. We got most of that out of our system, Danny, when they were teenagers. I don't know why. It's interesting. Mackenzie has always been a student of the game. She played high school golf. She plays now back. She's doing just great. She's a team leader at TQL and does just great. She runs their number one office down in Fairhope, Alabama. But she still plays some corporate golf, and she could smash it. So she was one of my daughters that was always asking me questions like, Dad, what's the strategy like? Like, what's this like? What's that? And I'm like, and the others were like, nice shot, Dad. She was kind of wanting to know, like, hey, Dad, peel back the curtain a little bit. Like, what were you doing over there? And I'm like, well, I shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Right.
And I was doing everything I could to get out, So, but she's going to be, she's already sending me texts like, hey, Dad, what do you want this to look? So she's always very conscientious about, doing the right thing. And she's going to need a few pointers for caddying, but it's going to be great and easy.
For our listeners that don't know, Jay Delsing grew up in North County, grew up carrying the bags out in North County as a kid, and now competing as a tour professional on the Champions Tour. So I say all that. You've been there and done it, but still you get emotional with this event today.
I do. It's just fantastic. Danny, there's no way anybody could have created something that would have been this good. There's no way. If you sprinkled magic dust all over me and said, Delsing, just make something that's going to, like you think will never happen. This is it. This is it. I mean, and the fact that I get to play, the fact that it's at Norwood, the fact that it's raising money for the community that I grew up in. And, this community's, it's not the same as when I grew up, Danny. It needs some help. And man, golf to the rescue. Here we go. We've raised almost $3 million going into this year, and we're going to add a big ticket to that again. And
a big deal today. If you head out to Norwood, this is the Folds of Honor Friday. This is something that is new for any of the tours. This has never happened, a Folds of Honor Friday at the Ascension Charity Classic this morning.
Yeah, Danny. I mean, this is going to be the first time that the golf has ever started on the Champions Tour with the national anthem. Now, we worked out this arrangement. The PGA Tour worked out this agreement with Folds of Honor, the great Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney. He's been on our show 3 or 4 times. It's going to come on again as soon as we can find a hole in the schedule. But they did this at the Memorial Tournament this year at Jackson Place. It went spectacularly. We, with this partnership, were able to garner 13 more scholarships, Danny, for men and women in this area for folds of honor for their families and for education for their children, for those fallen heroes, so that their children can get educated. And I mean, you do this with your tournament, and it's emotional as hell. That video that you put together last year for your tournament, I'm like, Danny, holy cow. I mean, how many tears did you shed putting that together? And you think about how lucky we are. Like, we just get to go play golf, and then we're going to raise this kind of money for some people that are in need. That's ridiculous.
How about the course? Pretty good shape?
Oh, insane. It is insane. The greens are perfect. The fairways. Well, what was it, last week? We looked at each other and like,
it's in outstanding shape.
There's not a blade of grass out of place, dude.
No.
They are amazing. And
finally, congratulations to you and the team at Ascension and for bringing this again together. This is now become a staple on the sports calendar here in St. Louis. It's a big, big deal.
It really is. And Danny, thank you for all your hard work, and all of you never turned down an invitation. These guys wear you out. You're great at all this stuff, and we're working really hard to try to extend this thing, Danny. And we're going to know really, really soon if we get to keep this tournament, beyond this year. So our fingers are crossed, and thanks for having me on as always. And folks, again, if you come out and follow me, just hide behind a tree. Those balls get away from me sometimes.
You still get those shaky knees on first tee.
You know it. Run for cover, baby.
That's the best. Thanks, Jay. Good
My
luck
pleasure,
today.
D.
That's Jay Delsing. He'll be teeing off at the Ascension Charity Classic. Kind enough to stop on by before he hits that first shot of his round this weekend. The Ascension Charity Classic. Tickets at ascensioncharityclassic.com. Back with more in just a moment.
We don't have to wait any longer. We have NFL football here. We got to watch the game last night. And, of course, another game tonight as the NFL season is here. And where are you going to play your daily fantasy? And it's truly a great week for daily fantasy in the NFL this week. It's with our friends at Underdog Fantasy. Over 1 million fans across 33 states got in the games last year by competing on Underdog. You can win up to 1,000 times your money by just choosing higher or lower on your favorite player stats. That's what I was doing last night. And if Zay Flowers just sits in the end zone there for that throw from Lamar Jackson, we're walking away with a big win from our entry yesterday, but unfortunately, that's the way the game plays, and Zay Flowers kept on running. So let's build an entry for today as we try to win a little bit in this Eagles and Packers game. We're just going to start off with 2 quick entries. Higher than 255 passing yards for Jordan Love. I know Danny Mack's big on Jordan Love's season this year, and higher than 37.5 rushing yards for Jalen Hurts. It's not just going to be the tush push. They're going to be getting some yardage on Jalen Hurts. You can start that entry today, and you can add to it so easily because making picks on Underdog is straightforward, and signing up is even easier than that. Just head over to Underdog, simple to use mobile app, which I use every day, or at UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with the promo code ROCC, and Underdog's going to give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. You can just add that free pick'em entry into our entry that we just built. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code ROCC, to claim your new customer special of a free pick'em offer and your deposit offer. Must be 18 plus and present. Stay right on. Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Consider your play. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.ncbgambling.org. This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Last night, the NFL season officially opened with the first regular season game, and it did not disappoint as the Chiefs outlast the Ravens 27-20, thanks to just a couple of toes from Ravens tight end Isaiah Likely. Some big college football matchups this weekend as number 3 Texas faces off against number 10 Michigan, and number 14 Tennessee faces off against the number 24 ranked NC State Wolfpack. Tigers in action. Number 9, they host Buffalo tomorrow at 6 p.m. and St. Louis City SC also back in action tomorrow as they face off against the New England Revolution. Coming up later on the show, Taylor Twellman, St. Louis native, joins the show to break down that match. That is your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Opening Drive's Fresh Take.
Rush 4. Lamar trying to make magic happen. Throw it in zone. Likely 2 feet down. Yes! Touchdown! What a play! Isaiah Likely! Going for 2 and the win are the Ravens on opening night.
Let's make sure. Oh, very close.
The runner's toe hit out of bounds. It's an incomplete pass. The game is over. Kansas City has won.
Brooke, Dan, and Rockio here, and the NFL script was on full display last night. The first game of the season, Chiefs and Ravens, possibly, maybe even as we were predicting yesterday with our NFL predictions for the year, could be the AFC matchup later on this season. But as of right now, what a first game of the season, as you heard there, likely a few inches short there.
And I would have loved to have seen what Jim Harbaugh was going to do, which he was going to go for it. And I love the fact that he had the gambler's attitude, so to speak. First game of the season, they score. Let's go for 2. Let's win this thing. So, it had everything in that game last night. Xavier Worthy was awesome, making his NFL debut. First time he touches the football in the NFL, he takes it for 6. And Lamar Jackson, 57-14 against everybody else except the Chiefs. He has got one win against Patrick Mahomes. That's it.
That's absolutely nuts.
It is.
It doesn't even feel real, and it will be known as the toe game. Now, Patrick Mahomes did have some advice for likely last night, and maybe it'll be something that helped him, because if you're watching the game, of course, we're seeing that slow-mo over and over again, but likely was wearing black cleats, and this is what Mahomes had to say.
He's got to wear white cleats next time. That's my advice for him.
I love that advice. It's really true, because we've actually heard a lot of players talk about this before, about how those little details matter, and it honestly could have saved him in that situation.
Could have saved him. There was a couple of misses late that Lamar Jackson had to win the game, but it just didn't work out for the Ravens. But in general, just what a way to kick off the season if you're the National Football League and you're the only game in town. This is your coronation, if you will, of the Chiefs from last year. You raise the banner and come out of the gates with a game like this, and then it sets up to what could be a great weekend. They're going to be overseas tonight. Then you got a full slate of games on Sunday. You got the Monday night game. Football's back, baby. It's fun to watch.
The best reality TV in town. And then you also have the Packers and Eagles in Brazil. Kickoff tonight is at 7:15, so a lot of people will be paying attention to that. But Dan, what are you looking forward to most this season? And there's a lot of things to look forward to. We went into depth yesterday about our predictions for everybody this year, but I'm also looking at the broadcasting side, because you have Tom Brady in the booth, and then you also have Bill Belichick, who it seems like after so many years that we watched him, where he would just kind of show up to press conferences with, a cut up sweatshirt, and he would just kind of moan and groan through his pressers. Now he's a media darling.
I think he's been great. To be honest with you, I've seen him on a bunch of different shows, and he makes guest appearances, and whether or not you like him, that's debatable because of all the baggage, if you will, that comes along with Bill Belichick. But when he's talking, I stop and I listen, because, his wealth of knowledge is just incredible, in the way that he can break down a game. It's the same thing when I'm watching Game Day and I see Nick Saban on there now. Makes me want to watch. And this Sunday, I think the thing that'll be talked about the most after week 1, and I'm sure some fans will completely disagree with this, but I think it'll be Tom Brady in the booth. And there'll be some people that are on, Twitter that'll say, he's overrated. He shouldn't be in there. He's not prepared. He's not blah, blah. He'll be prepared. He'll do a great job, and he'll probably satisfy the network bosses at Fox, and they'll say he did a hell of a job. You don't invest that kind of money into a guy unless you think he can do the job, and clearly they do. But that's going to be really interesting, the transition, going from playing, sitting out a year, and then now to being in the booth and being an analyst on the top game in the top window of the afternoon for Fox. And I think that's going to be something that people talk about more than anything on Monday, is what Tom Brady did.
The thing is from all the little previews that I've seen and just the interviews that he's done, I think he will be really well prepared going into it. And honestly, his interviews have been really good. So I think I'm looking forward to that too. Going back to Bill Belichick, is this kind of the new thing for maybe a coach or even a player where they can revamp their image via broadcasting?
I think that's what he's trying to do. Honestly, he wants to do something to keep himself relevant. But I think maybe some teams, some people stay away because of the personality or what they've been told or what they've seen or what they perceive. And you can change that by going on television and doing this. And maybe it's a good thing for him just to step away and get a different perspective of how the game is run. He's been doing this forever from the other side of the mic, and maybe it's something that he needed as well, just to get a little break. The only thing is he's 72 years old, so if you're a team out there that has to take a chance, you're going to take a chance on a 73, 74-year-old guy, and that's not old, but it's just you're getting older in the talent pool of coaches that are out there, and what is a grind to do this job. It's not easy, but I do think it does enhance potentially what people think of him. I think he does a great job, though. I've been just floored at how much insight I gain by listening to him just do these little hits.
I have a prediction, and I will probably be really wrong about this, Dan, but this is my bold hot take of the day here, okay?
Yeah, all right.
So Bill Belichick revamping his image. Obviously, the coaching search did not go well for him, but now he's going on the broadcasting side. I guarantee you that he will be the Cowboys head coach for next season.
So you're going with the Cowboys.
I'm going with the Cowboys.
Mike McCarthy's out.
Mike McCarthy's out.
Does he have Dak Prescott?
Yes.
He's got CeeDee Lamb.
Mm-hmm.
Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
All right. And then Bill Belichick.
For some reason, I can just see it panning out that way. He's really fixing his image, and I could be wrong about this, but maybe it turns out that way. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back into NFL coaching either way.
You know, the thing about, I would go back to Tom Brady, too. There's one thing about being interviewed, and they're machines at it. It's another thing to go on there and try not to be, you know what I mean? You got to be concise when you're in the booth and say something in a short amount of time. It is not an easy thing to do. So it's going to be some growing pains, I think, along the way. Now, they've done a lot to get him ready for this, but until the lights are on, man, you just don't know. So I'm fascinated by it. I can't wait to watch it this weekend.
Didn't they say they put him through kind of a media boot camp to get prepared for that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I wonder what that's like.
You can put him you can set up a separate truck, the production trucks, and put him in a booth and try to do games. What it will be like when the lights are on, but nothing's like it until it's live action. There's just nothing like it until you get going.
Because you can't stop. You can't just redo it. Everything is live. Have you had to do that before, where you had to do kind of the simulation prior to the actual live event?
No, they just threw me in there and said, good luck. And I either did or I didn't. More times than not, I screwed it up. So
no, you
it was
did
all
a
good.
Wonderful job. That's Dan. I'm Rocc and Roll. Coming up next, we have Take It or Leave It. Get your text into the Air Comfort Service text line. That is 314-399-9646, 314-399. Yo-ho! Take It or Leave It is next.
Delsing. We put it out there. If you like it, you can take it. If you don't, send it right back.
Get your text into 314-399-9646 and give us your take it or leave it.
Brought to you by Gloria Lou Realty. Visit GloriaHasTheBuyers.com and start packing.
That's my final offer. Take it or leave it.
Welcome back to the opening drive. Brooke, Dan, and Rockio here. And, of course, I'm here, too. Randy Karraker with the week off. He will be back next week. Now we have it, take it or leave it. So get your text into the Air Comfort Service text line. That is 314-399-9646, 314-399.
Yo-ho! Oh, yo-ho.
I've been waiting for one, Dan.
Yo-ho.
I didn't know if you want to get out of the way.
I got it out of the way.
There you go. All right, it's time for Take It or Leave It. Dan, why don't you kick us off?
Well, Giants third baseman Matt Chapman got his big deal yesterday. He got a 6-year, $151 million contract extension, which is basically right at the value that he had hoped to get on the free agent market this last year. Scott Boras, his agent. Now, he could have another massive offseason with clients like, let's see, he's got Juan Soto, Cody Bellinger, Alex Bregman, Blake Snell. Take it or leave it. This will be a bounce-back off-season for super agent Scott Boras.
Ooh, the revenge tour.
The revenge
Scott
tour.
Boras. I will take it because things obviously did not go well for him. I still would love kind of a behind-the-scenes story of everything and how it played out. Now, I think it worked out pretty well for Snell. I haven't kept up with exactly how he's doing here recently, but he seemed to bounce back fine. But things did not go well for our former Cardinal, Montgomery.
No, he's done with him. Jordan Montgomery was upset. Juan Soto is the big fish that'll be out there. He'll probably get over $500 million would be my guess. Cody Bellinger will be interesting to see what he does once he leaves the Cubs and opts out. Alex Bregman, another one that has been really good for a lot of years with Houston. Does he go back to the Astros? Can they find a better deal for him? So those are he's the best at what he does, and he gets the best players, and he gets the most money. But last offseason was kind of a shot in the gut to him. So we'll see if he bounces back this year. I always find it interesting to watch that stuff.
Oh, I do, because he's like the super agent.
Yeah.
And has kind of turned into the villain in certain ways, especially to the owners. But do you know, and I'm putting you on the spot here, are there any current Cardinals players that use him?
I don't know.
I don't think
is
that there
Ryan
is.
Helsley? I can't remember if Ryan Helsley is represented by Scott Boras or not. I don't think he is.
I knew that Tyler O'Neill was in the past.
Yeah, Tyler O'Neill was. That would be the big one that if you're the Cardinals and thinking about the offseason, what happens?
Was originally with the Ballinger group, and he is now with Wasserman.
Okay. So not to my knowledge.
All right. So take it or leave it. I don't know if you guys saw this. Nolan Gorman with a home run last night in Memphis. Take it or leave it. We'll see Gorman during this homestand. 6-game homestand.
During the homestand, I would say no. I
Rest
think,
of the season?
Yeah, I think we probably will at some point. But it's all predicated on him doing well. I mean, if he's not playing well in the minor leagues, you can't say, well, your season's over and we're going to bring you back up for the final couple of weeks of the Major League season. I just don't think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yep. Matthew, what do you got on the text line here, buddy?
Take it or leave it. You want to hate the Chiefs, but you just can't.
I'll take it. I mean, obviously, I'm a Titans fan here, so you guys know that. I think it's more of you have to just, if you're just a sports fan, watching Patrick Mahomes, how can you hate watching Patrick Mahomes?
Oh,
other than when he's playing your team, but I'm talking about specifically, you're seeing a great quarterback, and I'm jealous. I want that. I want what the Chiefs have.
And he's not controversial. He's a good guy. He's on all the commercials.
It seems like
to be
some other people around him are more controversial.
Yeah, I don't hate Patrick Mahomes.
What about Kelsey?
I do hate the Chiefs.
You do hate the Chiefs?
I do. It does piss me off every single time they win. It makes me a little angry.
See, that's what happens in sports, though. If you dominate and you win, then people get sick of you. And,
I've never liked that.
Andy Reid's likable.
Yeah.
He's not Bill Belichick.
And that's the thing. I love him. I love Andy Reid, and I like the players.
Yeah.
Obviously, I love Nick Bolton, and I'm happy when these guys win. But when the Chiefs themselves are the ones winning, I can be angry about that because of where they play in their fan base, without hating the players actively as they do it.
Now, Kelsey, I could see being a lightning rod. I think he is.
I actually kind of love Travis Kelce because he is, beyond a shadow of a doubt, a douchebag, but I still like him.
Why do you think he's a douchebag?
I just think he is. I just think he's just kind of like he always kind of talks like an ass, and I think he's
need like actual
I'm not in a bad way. I'm not thinking in a bad way. He's just kind of like
you're jealous because he's dating Taylor Swift.
No,
just
I
go
literally
ahead and
just
say
said I called him a d-bag, and then I said, but I still love him because he's still super likable, even though everything he does makes you think I'm gonna hate this guy because he just comes off like a classic, just like football player who doesn't have, who's just too
confident.
He comes off like a very happy version of Gronk, but he's not that dumb, and so I actually love Travis Kelce, despite the fact that there's a lot of reasons people hate him, and for all those reasons, it's like a perfect blend of like a spicy and sweet thing where you're like, that should be disgusting, pineapple on pizza, but it works. He is pineapple on pizza. You think he's going to be Kirk Cousins?
With like jalapenos, so it's a little spice.
Yes, exactly. Do you think he's going to be Kirk Cousins?
My favorite Domino's order.
Who is this nerd who won't stop yelling on the football field? Do you think he's going to be Kirk Cousins? But in actuality, he's one of the most likable players I've ever seen.
See, but so to the original point, I think it's why it makes the Chiefs hard to hate is because they have their head coach, super likable, great head coach, quarterback, super player, maybe the best ever, likable, and comes across as likable, but then they have one guy that's a villain. So that's where I fall on both sides of this.
So we have people texting in, and maybe this is something that actually has changed my perception. This is a great point. From the 618, New Heights made me like Travis Kelce more. I love that podcast with him and his brother Jason. It really has made me like both of them a lot more.
It also helps that before Travis Kelce ever came into the league, I was already a diehard Jason Kelce fan. I know that sounds weird to be a fan of a center, but it's 100% true. I've loved Jason Kelce from the moment he became a starter with the Eagles, and so that helped me enter into the Travis Kelce waters a little bit more.
I think that Kelce's very like cocky and confident. I think that's the other
that's
portion
what I'm saying.
of it.
He comes off. That's why I use the word I use. But despite the fact that he's still super likable.
Somebody wants you to know that the kids are still in cars.
Oh, I'm sure you've said worse around them. Take it or leave it. Bill Belichick embraces broadcasting with the NFL and becomes this generation's John Madden.
Oh. That's kind of hard
I'm gonna
to
leave
top.
that.
But yeah,
I'm gonna leave that.
it.
I don't think he's got the personality of John Madden, but I think he'll bring the insightfulness of a head coach that's won multiple Super Bowls and been a great coordinator and coached some of the all-time greats that's ever played the game. I stop and I listen to what he has to say. I find it very, very interesting. I mean, some of the stuff I know what's going to come out of his mouth, but then he'll give me a little nugget, and I'm like, man, I didn't think about that. If you make me think, then I find you interesting. If you don't make me think, then I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah.
And he makes me think.
I think that's a very interesting topic. Now, Madden's just hard to top in general.
Yeah, for sure. Explosion to television, the way that he did it was fun.
A lot of life.
Great personality. Yeah, no one's going to match that personality. Nobody.
And you're never going to find the perfect combination again. Madden was great because of the dryness of Summerall.
Pretty much.
Like it added the fact that he was going to explain a touchdown like it was the first time it had ever happened. It was the greatest thing he'd ever seen. And Summerall was going to be like 10-5 touchdown. And it was like that dichotomy made it perfect.
Am I the only one that likes Collinsworth? I think he's great.
I love Collinsworth.
I don't.
Yeah.
He gets a lot of
great.
hate, but I think he's solid.
He's great.
I hate him only because he made Pro Football Focus like a thing that we all have to like talk about regularly now.
Yeah,
I hate him for that.
All right.
Oh, I enjoy him. All right. Well, anyways, that was Take It or Leave It. Rocky, Dan, and Brooke. Coming up next, we will head to the celebrity line to talk to St. Louis native and now MLS Season Pass analyst Taylor Twellman. That's next here on 101 ESPN. Dan and Rocchio here, and we head to the celebrity line to talk to former MLS forward and MLS Season Pass analyst for Apple TV, and of course, St. Louis native Taylor Twellman. Taylor, how are you doing this morning?
Good. How are you guys?
We're doing great. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a big weekend for you. You're back in town because CSC will be facing the New England Revolution, and you will be honored prior to the game. You played for the Revolution, and obviously you grew up here in St. Louis, and you're a huge part of really making sure that MLS could come here to St. Louis. What does this mean for you to be honored?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, for anyone listening to this in St. Louis knows that if it's not about me, I'm not participating. So, no pun intended. I would say it's a life comes full circle for me. The city that raised me, St. Louis City, now comes to Boston to play the city that made me in the New England Revolution. So I think it's going to be a special moment. My mom and dad flew up. My sister and two nephews flew up. So for the Twellman family and my small group of loved ones, I think it's going to be one of those moments where we're all going to have to pinch ourselves and recognize that St. Louis City is actually in MLS.
Taylor, it's Danny Mac. Great to hear your voice, buddy. You also could go out to the Ascension Charity Classic and go check out Uncle Jay. I don't know if you knew that was going on in town too, but your uncle's in competition.
The problem is I'm in Boston. The game's in Boston. Otherwise, I'd probably caddy for Jay before the game, to be honest with you, Danny.
Now, you've done that before. You guys have been on the golf course together, and you were acting as his son for an event. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I've played as Taylor Delsing, and then I caddied for Jay in a U.S. Open qualifier at Boone Valley. And on hole 17, he was one stroke in qualification, and I looked at my dad, who was walking on the outside of the ropes. I go, what do I do? He goes, just zip it. Don't say a single thing. Just let it go. And, there we are. Here we are. Jay hasn't called me back since.
I can imagine. Hey, I want to get into your foundation, which is amazing. Can you give the backstory a little bit on what happened in your career? Many people know it, but some do not. What happened in your career and what that has sprung into to what you're doing now, really a life's passion?
Yeah, August 30th, 2008, we were playing David Beckham, Landon Donovan, the LA Galaxy here in Boston. There was about 50,000 people there. Everyone was there. Big moment. And something I've always done with my eyes closed is go up for a header, won the header, scored the goal, but at the same time the goalie punched me in the head. And I played the next 6-7 weeks, and then my career ended. And so at that moment, I'm going to say 2010, for an MVP of Major League Soccer not to have the right information, not to know what to do in the moment, I said, well, what's the 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kid going to do if they don't have the answers? So the Kraft family allowed me to, start a foundation, but more so allowed me to use their platform to build awareness. And in 2021 or 2020, obviously for all of us those years are blurred, but we had about 6.5 to 7 million kids take the Think Taylor pledge. And for those of you listening, it's you pledge to be educated, you pledge to be honest, and you pledge to be supportive. So if I can change anything, I'm going to change the conversation around TBIs in sports. So the grown-ups that are listening to this and the grown-ups that are involved get out of the way so our kids make better decisions, and especially a better decision than I made in 2008.
Taylor, that is awesome that you are doing that, and you're helping so many people through your foundation. Obviously, you're talking about your own experience of what you went through there, but also through the further research of your foundation. What did you find out about traumatic brain injuries?
Just that we are very uneducated. We're very naive in understanding that oftentimes we compare a knee, ankle, shoulder to a brain, and it just doesn't work like that. You can replace all three of those. You can't replace your brain. Brain's the most complicated organ in our body, and we've got to treat it with respect. I also think the conversation, and Junior Seau was a real dear friend of mine, next-door neighbor when he played for the Pats, and we got to change the narrative that when you get a concussion, everyone gets CTE and is going to take their lives. That's not how it works either. So I just hope we make better decisions. And I've said this along the way. When we found out smoking was really bad for our health, we gave better educational tools so you can make better decisions. Is there still smoking? Sure, absolutely. People are still going to make that decision. But we've got to make better decisions. But that doesn't mean getting rid of sports. It just means evolving. And if we don't evolve, then we become stagnant and obsolete. And I just think at this point in time, even in 2024, I can bring up something and still get a death threat on social media because I want to protect our kids from heading a ball, tackling football. I mean, not to scare anyone, but guys, 11 kids have died playing tackle football in 2024 already from head injuries. And the reason why I bring that up is you're not making better decisions. We're not educating the kids. This isn't life or death, but it is life or death because you're making the wrong decision in the moment. I don't want to get rid of sports. I just want to evolve.
It's about a year and a half. Let's get back to soccer here for a moment, Taylor. And I love what you're doing, obviously, with your life's work. But I also love what you're doing on the television side and covering MLS and following City. So it's a year and a half into its existence. What have you thought about the first year going into year number 2 and then what's taking place right now with City SC?
I think it's a growing pain, and you knew it was going to come. I think with the way the first year happened, I think it's very, very difficult to – you outkicked your coverage. You had historically the best season ever for an expansion franchise in the regular season. And so now you all of a sudden go into that and say, hang on a minute. You then have – arguably the biggest disappointment you can have in losing to a team that you shouldn't have lost to in the 8th seed in the playoffs. You're the number 1 seed. You get blown out at home. And to be honest with you, it's almost as if the team hasn't really gotten over that. I think this transfer window as of late has been a very strong one. It's been one where they filled the holes. Do I think St. Louis City can make the playoffs? I do. Do I think they will? I don't. And then it's going to be interesting to see what happens in this next offseason and where you go. But every team in MLS goes through a growing pain. More often than not, it's in the first year. Atlanta United, LAFC are the only 2 teams in MLS history to not go through that in the first 3 or 4 years. But they both went through it. So to answer your question, it's kind of expected. I just think last year surprised the heck out of everybody, and everybody's like, wait a minute, is this going to be St. Louis City and how they operate? And this year's been a little humbling.
We're talking to MLS Season Pass analyst for Apple TV and St. Louis native Taylor Twellman. He'll be honored prior to the game in Boston this weekend. And you kind of touched on it there. The new additions have been great to see for City SC. What have you thought of Hardle and Toyshirt?
I like the way they play. I think they're intriguing in the sense that they like to play with the ball. And St. Louis City in the first 14 months of their existence was a team that didn't want to play with the ball, the team that wanted to be aggressive and turn them over and play as quickly as they could going forward. This team all of a sudden now wants the ball a little bit. You've got Leuven underneath them. There just looks to be a little bit more composure. I still think there's another level or two that they need to get to, but there is at least a competence with the group now, with those 2 players being on the field and having the ability to play with the ball, and I think that's extremely important. Now with the injured players coming back, they're a little bit deeper. I'm intrigued to see what they look like against the Revs. The Revs are another team that are struggling to make the playoffs. They have games in hand. They've got a little bit more favor with them. But in and of itself, I think the last 5, 6, 7 games of the year, you're going to get a better idea of what St. Louis City is going to look like in 2025.
What was your reaction at the time to the coaching change, and then what have you seen how the club has played since then?
Well, naturally, when you're in the thick of it, I may have a different opinion and see different things than maybe the fan on the outside. I found the end of last season to be very intriguing and very eye-opening for a team that was the number 1 seed in the West. And when you have a disappointment in the manner that you did, you have to look at the group and how quickly. Now, I thought Bradley Cardinal absolutely outkicked his coverage that first year. It was unbelievable. But I've said this to Bradley, so I'm not saying it. I don't enjoy that style of play. I will respect it and understand the fruits of that labor to a certain level, but I've said this about the New York Red Bulls. I've said this about other teams that do it. That's not the way I would go about it, but I still have to do my job and appreciate it. I wanted to see the first 5, 6 games of the year. If the first 5, 6 games of this year were dominant the way they were last year, then that was a blip on the radar and they're going to be good. They weren't. And immediately when I saw the team come out of the gates this year, I said there's cause for concern about the group, that locker room, what's going on behind the scenes, and more importantly, have they still have the deer in headlights look from Sporting Kansas City upsetting them in the playoffs? And to be honest with you, I think that answer was there. So I think it's intriguing what they make of John Hackworth, but more so what happens this offseason to put a bow on that answer. I find it to be a very enticing job, intriguing job. The ownership hasn't spent a ton of money at all on the players, and so there's the wiggle room to do that. The rumor among the coaching circle is, you know what, St. Louis City is a job that you really want to have.
That's really interesting, Taylor. And speaking of, you mentioned their playoffs. Now, mathematically, they are not out of it. They're 9 back. There are 7 games up for grabs, 21 points available there. Can you kind of sell me on maybe City SC making the playoffs?
Yeah, I had this conversation with Lutz yesterday. I think you've got to have 4 wins and draws to get there, or you win 5. You got to somehow do. Listen, they've got to win. In my opinion, they've got to get points at St. Louis. The schedule favors St. Louis City. If I'm not mistaken, it's 2 against Minnesota United. It's 1 against San Jose. You have to be, if you're going to make the playoffs, you have to win those 3 games unequivocally. But I'd argue on the road against the Revs, similar type of situation, it's do or die for both teams. It's going to be an intriguing game, but they cannot lose the game against the Revs if they want to make the playoffs. I just don't see that. Mathematically, you can show me what it is, but I just think unless they go on this 5-game winning streak, which us 3 and the listeners would agree, well, we haven't seen that this year. I don't know if it happens.
Taylor, as you mentioned, and it's a final question, you were behind the scenes and trying to make this happen for many years, to have soccer MLS come to St. Louis. And now that we are almost 2 years in, has this turned out to what you thought it might be? Is it exceeded expectations? Is there deficiencies in certain areas? Just a general thought of what you thought it could be and has reached those expectations that you thought it might be.
Well, I think 2 things I would say to that. One, even though I saw this and knew it would happen, doesn't mean I believe that it would. So I will always be indebted to the Taylor family for just giving every single one of us that believe this, that we could pull this off. This city deserves a credit. It has nothing to do with me or any of the ex-players that knew St. Louis City would be great in supporting the sport. It was always there. It's ingrained in it. It's in the fabric. I know St. Louis fans are not really positive about the NFL, but they fully need to understand that my owner, my former boss, Jonathan Kraft, was instrumental in fighting for St. Louis to get an expansion team. He knew the moment Major League Soccer went to the Cincinnatis, the Austins, the Charlottes, all these places, he was like, there's zero chance we can't go to St. Louis. And so Uncle Andy and the Taylor family, all of those people, and Carolyn and all of them, they will tell you the same thing. Jonathan Kraft believed in St. Louis from the moment they became a real possibility, which is why I think tomorrow night is a special moment for the Revs, because they knew the league would be better with St. Louis in it.
Awesome. Awesome stuff, Taylor. Thanks for doing this. We appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, good hearing your voice, guys.
Thank you so much, Taylor. That was St. Louis's own Taylor Twellman, and he will be honored Saturday prior to the game against the New England Revolution as City SC faces off against them, and that will start at 6:30. Coming up next, ninth ranked, Mizzou will be facing off against Buffalo this weekend. Another sellout game. We will go to the celebrity line again to talk to the radio voice for Mizzou football, Chris Gervino. That is coming up next here on the Opening Drive. to the opening drive. Brooke, Dan, and Rocchio here, and we head back to the Celebrity Line to check in with Chris Gervino, who will be a part of the Mizzou broadcast this weekend as 9th-ranked Mizzou will face off at home against Buffalo. Chris, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure, Brooke. Good to be with you all.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. Obviously, Mizzou facing Buffalo this weekend, as we mentioned, but let's go back to week one. They took care of business against Murray State. What were your big takeaways from the first game of the season?
Well, I thought it was good just that Missouri, took control of the game right away and really put away an overmatched opponent. It was 28-0 in the first 10 or 11 minutes of play, and I thought it was a rather complete effort. Offense obviously scored a ton of points. Defense didn't give up any points. It was their first shutout, I guess, in 4 years, and they played so well against Ohio State in the bowl game defensively, and then with 5 guys gone to the NFL, a lot of new players showed up right away and posted the shutout. I think held them to 85 yards, which was a good number defensively, obviously. Now, clearly the competition is going to get stronger week by week. Buffalo has not been really good recently, so Missouri's a heavy favorite again on Saturday. But, then after that, it gets pretty serious pretty quick with Boston College showing up next week and then Vanderbilt to start SEC play.
You live in Columbia, Chris, and you've lived there a long time and covered the Tigers in their down years and now in the really good years. What's the atmosphere like in Columbia, around the school, around the university, around the kids, and just seeing sellouts for Murray State, for God's sake? I mean, who would have thought you'd sell out Murray State, and now here we are with Murray State, Buffalo, back-to-back sellouts.
Yeah, it really has been something here recently. The fans have responded tremendously. Everybody loves a winner, so they're going to jump on board. And you're right. I mean, you've got this string of sellouts now. Murray State was the 6th in a row, so they look to continue going on and on with that. And, the excitement you can really tell and feel it around town, and it's just great after, many lean years. And, of course, those hopefully are in the past, at least some of the really tough stretches they had. And that all changed with really Gary Pinkel's great run here. But now, Coach Drinkwitz really has built his program with the infusion of so many players via the transfer portal was such a big deal these days. And, of course, just his great recruiting from the high school ranks, especially in St. Louis. But, you look at it, and this is Missouri's highest ranking, currently number 9 in the AP poll since 2008 when they were up at number 6. And that was after the Cotton Bowl win from the 2007 season on New Year's Day 2008 when they blasted Arkansas. So some similarities. Now you come back another Cotton Bowl win over Ohio State, and they're riding that momentum. But it's very exciting, and they've got a great chance, as I mentioned, to get off to a great start record-wise with all these home games, 4 in a row at Furrow Field to start the season.
Yeah, I think a lot of St. Louisans here love watching the St. Louisans who are on the roster. Brady Cook, of course, and then I know that Brett Norfleet is dealing with an injury. Is that just more precautionary this weekend to keep him healthy, or is there any cause for concern there?
Yeah, I think they're being careful. I guess the initial comments were that they thought, he would be okay and it won't be a long-term situation. Boy, it was something, though. A lot of people held their breath when he got hurt and had to leave the game and then left the field because he really is a talented kid, as you know, just big size, big frame there as a target and can run after the catch and just kind of, completes the offense there with the great wide receivers they have and what looks to be a pretty good 1-2 running back punch. Cody Schrader's gone. They've got balance with the 2 transfers. So I think Norfleet's a real key to the puzzle, and I think they hope and are going to be real careful with him, again, especially for these first few weeks if there are questions with him.
Yeah, I was curious about the running game. Chris, did we learn anything from last week in watching the 2 new kids that are getting a chance and trying to replace Cody Schrader?
Well, it's just hard to tell. I just think early against such an overwhelmed opponent. But, the good thing was they averaged combined about 5 yards per carry. They did not, turn over the ball, no fumbles. I mean, they pretty much did their jobs there. It's interesting because they really are probably going to share the load, and they're different. Noel is 5'8" and well under 200 pounds, and he's a kid from Appalachian State. And Carroll is from Georgia State, and he's 5'9", but he's close to 220. I mean, he's about 25 pounds or so heavier than Noel. So, of course, you make the easy thunder and lightning comment. Noel's a speedy guy who gets outside probably more, where Carroll's going to really try to run over or through guys as a general statement. So they're a little different, but they both I thought acquitted themselves really well game one, and we're probably going to see them both primarily again against Buffalo and beyond as long as they stay healthy.
We're talking to Chris Gervino, who will be a part of the Mizzou broadcast this weekend as number 9th ranked Mizzou will face off against Buffalo. Now, looking at the schedule, I wasn't going to say that these were cakewalks for the season, but, you know, looking at the schedule early on, prior to the season, you see Boston College, you see Vandy, and you're like, I shouldn't be too worried about it. But now, Chris, I'm a little bit more worried about it after seeing their week one victories.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's a good point. Both teams were surprising. First, Vanderbilt on Saturday beat Virginia Tech in overtime, and Vandy, I think, was like a 13-point underdog at home. They've had such little success in many years now, even under their newer coach, Clark Lee. And then, man, was Boston College impressive. I was curious just to look at them since they're coming quickly next week on the schedule. And I knew they had a really good quarterback, Thomas Castellanos, who played last year for them, and a good runner, good thrower, but the whole team, I mean, they just controlled and dominated that game in Tallahassee. Now, obviously, Florida State may not be the team we all thought they were, and that's why preseason polls are kind of dangerous sometimes, but boy, they look good. And then Bill O'Brien, the head coach at BC, obviously is really a household name in football, both the NFL and collegiate level. He's been head coach of the Houston Texans, had good success there, of course, was coordinator with the Patriots, was then head coach at Penn State, of course, and was leaving to go to Ohio State as offensive coordinator, and the BC job opened, and he's just like a perfect fit there from that area. His wife went to Boston College, and he's just instilled his style of play, the mentality, and that is going to be a challenging game. I think it becomes a lot more interesting next week, and I would think Mizzou still is favored over those two teams at home, but it'll be competitive. And, that's okay because some of these first couple of weeks' opponents, does anybody really enjoy, when the games are so out of hand, 28-0 in 10 minutes? I mean, better be on the positive side of that scoreboard. But these are real tests coming quickly, and they'll only sharpen Mizzou for the SEC, I think.
You always find little nuggets. I love listening to you guys with Howard and Mike on the call in the booth, and they go down to you on the sidelines. You always have little nuggets. So I'm curious, what's Chris Gervino cooking up for this weekend? Give me some nuggets that you're looking at to make this thing interesting.
Well, right off the bat, the Buffalo Bulls, not the Bills, luckily, but the Bulls are coming to town, and their athletic director is a guy by the name of Mark Allnut, who played football at Mizzou.
That's
he was
right.
A Tiger football player in the 90s, from Kansas City. And then he was an athletic administrator for 12 years here, 2000 to 2012. So he knows Missouri's AD, Laird Veach, and vice versa. They're in the athletic department for many years together. Real good guy. And, Danny, when you stay in sports long enough, it's just such a small world, collegiately and professional, and everybody moves around, and you feel like at least every other person, if not every person. So that's kind of neat. He comes back. Buffalo's 1-0. They beat the Lafayette Leopards 30-13 last week. So hopefully they'll have a more difficult time with these cats of old Mizzou tomorrow. But yeah, they should be overmatched too. They had a tough year, and I think if you're interested, Missouri's a 5-touchdown favorite. Last week they're about a 7-touchdown favorite, so it might be a more competitive game. But you don't want to be flippant about it, but this really should be another tune-up type game that hopefully Missouri takes care of early and gets to see a lot of players again, because that was really beneficial, I thought, a week ago.
Our buddy Laird Veach, as you mentioned, is now the AD and comes back to Mizzou. I'm curious, just his first few months on the job, what's it been like in trying to navigate the NIL portal situation, all those different things, and just get his feet wet and get back rolling at old Mizzou?
Well, I think Laird's a sharp guy, a little biased because I've known him, for 25 years from his first run here, but just a good, solid, really smart person. And I was so happy when he got the job because I just thought it made sense. You may have noticed Mizzou's had a little turnover in recent years at that athletic department director spot.
Yeah, we noticed. We take notice here in St. Louis.
Yeah. So, Laird, I think, wants to be here. He's from Manhattan, Kansas, originally played at K-State. It's a short 4-hour drive down I-70. And, he's been here before for many years. He knows the situation, knows the unique things about Mizzou, and I think really wants to be here. He's very qualified. He's been at his alma mater, Kansas State, as an administrator, was at Texas briefly early in his career, Iowa State, Florida, was a deputy AD there, and then, of course, at Memphis, he was 5 years as athletic director, and Memphis, one of the better, certainly athletic schools in the non-power conferences, and I think he knows NIL. Now, I don't know if he's going to be able to land some of that FedEx funding that
Right.
helped Memphis. Maybe he could bring that to Mizzou, call on with Mr. Smith, I think, there at Memphis. He could be helpful, right? Dan, maybe he could work on that too. But I just think Claire gets it. I mean, he's ready for the changing landscape as it is. And that's why I think Drinkwitz, honestly, back to the football field has been so good because he really works the portal and recruiting hard. And, I mean, he's a hard worker, but I think it also somewhat comes natural to him. You know what I mean? It's just kind of in his wheelhouse. He's a good communicator with the kids and just embraces it, where it's harder, I think, for some other coaches or different personalities and come from a different time in college sports, which wasn't that long time ago.
Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, my pleasure, guys. Have a good weekend.
You're the best, buddy. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Dan. Bye.
You got it. We'll be tuned in tomorrow. That's Chris Gervino.
That was great stuff from him. And as Dan mentioned there, Mizzou will be facing off against Buffalo this Saturday. Kickoff is at 6. That is a sold-out game, another sold-out game for Mizzou, so a lot of excitement surrounding them right now. And they deserve it because they're a 9th-ranked team in the country, so I'm excited to see what they do this weekend. Coming up next, we have the fight, and that's something I'm not as excited about because this is a Hall of Fame chance for Steve today, Dan.
Well, let's put on your work boots.
Give me a pep talk. I need it.
There's nothing to say in a pep talk like this. You know what you're up against. I mean, there's just, you know the challenge. So you either show up or you don't.
I was
Don't be
already
scared.
nervous, and now I am more nervous, Dan.
Oh, don't be scared. It's the fight.
All right. Yeah.
You'll be fine. It's a Friday.
There you go.
The weekend's here. We should all be happy.
Exactly. The weekend is here, and we have the fight that's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Last night, the NFL kickoff was a good game, to say the least, as the Ravens almost tied things up and could have gone for the win, but Isaiah Likely just a few inches out of bounds, and the Chiefs walk away with a 27-20 win to open up the NFL season. The NFL season continues opening tonight, and here on 101 ESPN, you can hear more NFL games as the Packers and Eagles get started with a 6:30 pregame. It's also a jam-packed weekend of football, as we have your Fighting Illini facing off against the Kansas Jayhawks pregame at 5:30 on Saturday. The morning game that day on Saturday, Michigan versus Texas, and a 3-game slate for your Sunday: Falcons, Steelers, Seahawks, Broncos, and Lions, Rams, all on 101 ESPN this weekend. That is your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Welcome to the fight. In the red corner, Average Joe Listener. And in the blue corner, the undisputed king of morning drive. Please welcome Randy Karraker.
All right, time for the fight. Brooke is out of the studio. It is 8:36, and our fighter today, Steve. Now, Rocc, I need to ask you a couple of questions here very quickly.
Yeah.
He's going for a third consecutive win, correct?
Yeah.
And that would make him a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And then what happens if you win the Hall of Fame?
Well, you just keep on going.
Okay, but do you get something for being a Hall of Famer?
You do, yeah. You get a little trophy, and you get a signed ball, which I guess in this case would be a Brooke Grimsley signed baseball.
Oh, man.
Instead of a Randy Karraker signed baseball, which honestly, Steve, you're going for a collector's item here. There's not a lot of people in St. Louis with signed baseballs from Randy Karraker for being Fight Hall of Famers, but there's like half a dozen, maybe a full dozen. I don't know if there's anybody out there who's going to have a baseball signed by Brooke Grimsley out there in St. Louis. So a little collector's item on the line here for Steve.
Steve, a lot is on the line today, let me tell you.
I'm ready. I just picked up a Mason Wynn autograph ball. I think Brooke would look really nice next to it. So.
Oh, that's adorable.
Nicely done.
All right, buddy, are you ready?
I'm ready.
3 Cardinals have scored 130 or more runs in a season since World War II. Stan the Man, Albert Pujols, and who else? Was it Matt Carpenter, Jim Edmonds, or Big Mac?
Well, give me those one more time, please.
I'll reread the question and the options. 3 Cardinals have scored 130 or more runs in a season since World War II. Stan the Man back in 48. Albert did it a couple of times. And who else? Was it Matt Carpenter, Jim Edmonds, or Mark McGwire?
Do you have to go with Jim Edmonds on this one?
Is that your final answer?
It is my final answer.
All right, on to question 2.
Who is the last left-handed starting pitcher to lead the Cardinals in wins for a season? Is that Mark Mulder, Donovan Osborne, or Kent Merker?
I'm going to go with Mark Mulder. Final answer.
All right, question 3. Besides Lamar Jackson, who is the only NFL QB with double digits games with 100-plus rushing yards? Is it Michael Vick, Colin Kaepernick, or Cam Newton?
I'm going to go with Cam Newton. Final answer.
All right, on to question 4.
Who is the last American man to win the U.S. Open Singles Championship? Is that Andy Roddick, Pete Sampras, or Andre Agassi?
Pure guess. I'm going to go with Roddick. Final answer.
All right, we'll double check our scores and we will bring in Brooke Grimsley. How you feeling about your day today, Steve?
I'm going to be happy with anything over 0.
That's, you know what? I like it. It's positivity today. I like it. We're being a very positive show today, and I think it's because we haven't talked a lot about the Cardinals. That's going to change the next hour. I'll warn people, but nonetheless, the positivity reigns here throughout the 8 o'clock hour as Brooke Grimsley rejoins us here in studio. Brooke, no grapes? Any food to fuel you? Was it the Belvita Crunch? Is that what it's called?
It's just the Belvita Crunch.
Oh, the Belvita
wanna,
Crunch.
If they want to sponsor me, please. This is all that I eat every single morning because I've tried like protein bars or different things, Dan and Rocc, and for whatever reason, whatever they stuff in this, it could be absolutely terrible for me. It keeps me full long enough until lunch.
Are you worried you're about to get mean girled and like in 6 months someone's going to tell you it's actually bad for you?
I could actually see that. That would not be ideal for me. So far, it's been okay. Carrie would make fun of me because there was times when I first started here where I was just testing out any sort of breakfast, but it wasn't sustaining me. And we were doing an interview one time, Dan, and my stomach growled so loud.
And the microphone picked it up. Oh, God.
And the microphone picked up, and Carrie was dying.
The nicest thing I've ever done is not clip that off and use it as a drop.
No, literally, Mike Ryder came into the studio, was like, "Do we have that? We need to keep that." Like,
I burned it for you, Brooke.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Anyways, hi, Steve. How are you?
I'm good. Yourself?
Good. Doing great. How are you doing?
I'm just hoping I got a couple right I just hope I got one more right than you're going to get.
There it is.
Okay. All right. Because I felt like yesterday when I came in, I could tell you were very chipper and happy, and I knew that it was probably not going to be great for me. So I'm trying to read the room a little bit.
Are you ready?
Sure.
3 Cardinals have scored 130 or more runs in a season since World War II. Stan the Man, Albert Pujols, and who else?
I like how we have the clarification of World War II there, so we
Baseball
don't go too far
eras
back
are weird.
in time.
Yeah, all right.
It's not Rogers Hornsby again. Okay.
He did do it a couple times, but that's not the answer.
That's what I was thinking. He did do it a couple times, didn't he?
Yes, played post World War I, pre World War II.
Whatever. Okay, if we want to get that technical with it.
I am.
Okay, so I would suspect that Jimmy Ballgame is in this conversation. But we were talking about Mark McGwire yesterday. I'll go with Jim.
Jimmy Ballgame?
Yes, give me Jimmy Ballgame.
On to question 2.
Who is the last left-handed starting pitcher to lead the Cardinals in wins for a season?
I'll do the options, please.
Mark Mulder, Donovan Osborne, or Kent Merker? Big late 90s, early 2000s Cardinals fan, are you, Brooke?
Yeah.
This was a mean question. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's totally fine. That's the fight. It's fair. I'm sure Randy's listening.
The questions
at home.
present themselves to me as I Google things on the internet, and this one just popped up, and I was like, well,
yeah, I'm sure
we'll
Randy
see what
is
happens.
at home listening, probably like disappointed.
Screaming it at his radio?
Yes, probably screaming. Can you give me the options one more time, please?
Mark Mulder, Donovan Osborne, or Kent Merker?
I don't know. I'll just go.
C? Kent Merker?
Yes.
Final answer?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Well thought out there.
I don't
Brooke,
have. There's not much thoughts happening there, Dan.
Besides Lamar Jackson, who is the only other NFL QB with double digits games with 100 plus rushing yards?
Options, please.
Michael Vick, Colin Kaepernick, or Cam Newton?
Ooh, this is a good one. I think Cam should be up there, but I mean Kaepernick. I was waiting for Kyler Murray. I'm just kidding. Michael Vick, though. I think it's Michael Vick. Give me Michael Vick.
Michael Vick, final answer. On to question 4.
Who is the last American man to win the U.S. Open Singles Championship?
Oh, it's been a while, and it will be broken tonight because Taylor Fritz, for those who have been paying attention to the U.S. Open, I believe that he will have the upper hand. Actually, who knows what will happen here, but it's actually amazing to have an American in this situation again. But it's been, I believe, over 20 years since Andy Roddick did it.
Final answer?
Yes.
Matthew, do your thing.
We have a winner in today's fight. Steve going for the Hall of Fame. And again, the prized signed baseball by Brooke Grimsley that I don't believe anyone else in St. Louis would have. A 1-for-1 souvenir on the line here for Steve. Does he walk away with that
I don't know if
and
anybody wants that.
a trophy? 1-for-1. You never know. Does he walk away with that and a trophy, or does the Grim Reaper, who missed on her last 2 swings, come around and take out Steve? Ring that bell.
The winner and still champion of the fight, Randy Karraker.
The fight is presented by Golf Discount of St. Louis, with the most experienced club fitters in town. Why shop anywhere else?
Hey, yo, lesson here, baby. You come at the king, you best not miss.
Sorry about you, Steve. You came at the king and you slipped up a little bit. She beat you 3-1 in today's fight. Sorry about it, Steve.
That's all right. It was a good round. Thanks for letting me play, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. It was the Cardinals questions right off the rip that actually got us off to a rough start here. 3 Cardinals have scored 130 more runs in a season since World War II. Stan Musial in 48, Albert Pujols in 03 and 04, and it was Mark McGwire in his record-setting campaign. Jim Edmonds hit 129. He hit 129. So it's right there. Yes, I'm being technical and
did Steve
on that one.
Jim too?
Yes, he did. You guys both went with Jimmy Ballgame. The last left-handed starting pitcher to lead the Cardinals in wins for a season. This is not the highest win total for a Cardinal left-handed starting pitcher since this time. Mark Mulder had 15 wins, but it was not the lead on the team. Jaime Garcia had a 13 and 15 win season, but it was not the lead on the team. The last lefty with the most wins in a Cardinals season, 1999, Kent Mercker with a 11 and 11 record, is the last left-handed starting pitcher to lead the Cardinals in wins for a season. That was the random one you jumped at.
Mark is what I would have done. So
he had a lot more wins than Kent Mercker in his career, but Mark was part of some very good rotations. Obviously, things in the very late 90s not going great. Talent. Yes, one thing with the fight, I don't want to give up the sell the farm on this one, but like if there's 2 names that you know and a third name you don't, there's a reason the third name's there, and there's a reason that you know the 2 names. It's because the third name is the right one, and the 2 names are the options I had to find.
Yeah,
because I'm not pulling random names you've never heard on my back pocket for options. I'm pulling out names you've heard to try to throw you off the scent. Just a little tip for all you fighters later on. Brooke caught on to that. And in fact, there's a number of fighters who have said, as they've answered, that's the one I've never heard of, so that's the one I'm picking because I think you're trying to trick me. And they get me usually. Besides Lamar Jackson, the only other NFL quarterback with double-digit games with 100-plus rushing yards. This is the correct answer. The obvious one. It is, in fact, Michael Vick. And the last American man to win the U.S. Open Singles Championship. We went on a little run there in 2001. Pete Sampras beat Andre Agassi, an All-American, but a year later, Andy Roddick was the last American to do it. But again, after having 3 Americans in the finals and 2 of them winning it across 2 years, there has not been an American man in the final since Andy Roddick won it over 20 years ago, and that will be broken today, just like today was for Steve. A 3-1 victory for Brooke. Steve, thank you so much for joining the fight and joining the show the last couple of days.
Have a great weekend, guys. Thanks.
Thank you so much,
as well,
Steve.
sir.
I got to see Andy Roddick serve in person because if you guys have ever watched Andy Roddick before, what was he best known for? His powerful serve. And I got to see it in person one time in Arkansas, actually. He was like doing an event tour, and it was insane seeing it in person.
Hits it hard, huh?
Yeah. Safe to say I wouldn't be able to return that, Dan.
Probably not.
No.
Probably not. Even though you're a good player, I don't think any of us would. So it's all good.
I did get one correction today from the texters in the fight. They were correct. Rogers Hornsby started playing Major League Baseball before World War I started.
I think you do a hell of a job on these questions.
You got me on that one. Damn.
Yes. I do think that you're right. There is a way to kind of read between the lines of your questions where, I should have gone with that with the first Cardinals one where it was like, right there, kind of on the line.
Yeah, you know what the best way to get a lot of runs is?
There's trickery involved, Dan.
You know what the best way to get to 130 runs? Hit 70 home runs.
Yeah, that's
knocks out half of them right there.
That was a lot of logic that I forgot about to use right there. All right, coming up next, that was the fight, by the way. Thank you so much for Steve for participating, and we'll have Randy Karraker back next week, and he will take back over the fight. But
you got to do it on Monday, too.
Wait, what?
You have to do it on Monday.
Randy's out Monday.
Oh, yeah.
You got one more day, Brooke.
Let's make BK do this because it's going to be BK on Monday, Dan. Are you with me? Like, let's pressure him into doing this.
No, I think you're driving the bus on this.
We're trying to enjoy our weekend.
It stresses me out.
Don't be stressed.
I just don't. No, it stresses me out. Anyways, that was the fight. Coming up next, we have our Rush Hour Reset.
sports stories of the day on the opening drive with a Rush Hour Reset.
Welcome back to the opening drive. Brooke, Dan, and Rockio here, and we're going to have a very short Rush Hour Reset because on standby we have Derrick Goold of the Post-Dispatch to talk about the Cardinals. The Cardinals are in town this weekend, 6-game homestand, first facing the Mariners. It will be Eric Fetty on the mound tonight, and first pitch is at 7:20. It's a big weekend, Dan, in St. Louis because you have the Ascension Charity Classic. If you're watching on TV, you have City SC facing off against the New England Revolution, and then you have 9th-ranked Mizzou hosting Buffalo, another sellout over in Como, and of course NFL all weekend long.
Yeah, Bryce Miller going tonight, so a pair of right-handers, Bryce Miller, Eric Fetty, and that game at 7:15 down at the ballpark. 6:15 tomorrow night, Logan Gilbert and Kyle Gibson, Luis Castillo on Sunday against Miles Michaelis, so right-handers all weekend long. I think one of the questions that I'm curious to see answered this weekend, really for the remainder of the season, is the crowds. You know, what kind of crowd are you going to have going to the ballpark tonight? Do the fans still believe that the team is somewhat in it? Are you bought in a little bit that there's that little sliver of hope that you have to go down to the ballpark? So be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I think it will be really interesting to see. I think that especially we got mixed messages when we discussed this the other day, where some people are saying, no, I'm still not going to go out there, even with the recent play. To me, Dan, and we've talked about this a lot, even though things haven't been great prior, I think that seeing these young players and the way that they're playing, Jordan Walker, I would like to see him play every single day. Mason Wynn, what he is able to do, and even Luke and Baker, surprisingly, coming through. Those are things that I would actually enjoy seeing in person.
And I think you'll see some of that. The Cardinals start 10 games back in the Central, so don't include the Central here. They're now 5 games back in the wild card. So there's still hope. You got 22 games left, and we'll talk it over with Derrick Goold coming up. He's going to be in studio for an hour, so if you have questions for him, you can text into us as well, and we'll get some of those questions to Derrick and have a little fun in that final hour of the show.
Exactly. Derrick Goold is coming up from the Post-Dispatch to talk all things Cardinals. Also, coming up here on Monday, you can join Randy Karraker September 9th from 4 to 6 p.m. over at the Fenton Bar and Grill. Come see the best servers and bartenders in the area. Enjoy their outdoor deck, some cold drinks, and chow down on the best original trash wings in St. Louis. You can also see the fiery redhead Kelly over there. Plus, get signed up for some 101 ESPN giveaways. That's Randy Karraker at Fenton Bar and Grill this Monday. Learn more at 101ESPN.com. Derrick Goold is next here on the opening drive.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at renofi.com/notices. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply or play stopped, opt out.
John, I'm putting my foot down. We can't put off renovating this house any longer. Our kitchen is so small. We need to finish the basement for the kids, and don't even get me started on the bathrooms.
Honey, renovating is so expensive. We can't do all those projects.
With Renofi, we can.
What's Renofi?
Renofi loans are a new type of home equity loan only for homeowners doing renovations. We can get up to $500,000 and keep our existing low mortgage rate locked in.
With Renofi, we can do everything on our renovation list and we don't have to refinance?
That's right. Renofi loans are the only home equity loan that use the after renovation value.
Just what we need. How do we get started with Renofi?
Just send them a text.
Text TOOK to 323232 and see if you qualify for up to $500,000 to renovate your home with Renofi. Unlock the future value of your home right now to get the money you need without refinancing. Text the word TOOK to 323232 to get started today. Text TOOK to 323232.
NMLS number 1802847. Not all borrowers or properties qualify. Loan terms apply.
DirecTV and DirecTV Stream customers, you have lost ESPN, including college football, Monday Night Football, ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, SportsCenter, and more. Take action now. Call 844-KEEP-MY-ESPN or visit keepmyespn.com. Craving some mouth-watering barbecue? Mr. Barbecue's Bar and Grill is your locally owned destination for the best in old-school barbecue with a modern twist, serving the St. Louis area for over 20 years. Dine indoors or out on the patio and enjoy a drink from the bar with your meal. Mr. Barbecues is also proud to be a part of the community, owned by a dedicated member of local law enforcement committed to serving you on and off duty. 1280 Columbia Center in Columbia, Illinois, or at Mystic Oaks Golf Course in Waterloo, Illinois. Visit themrbarbecue.com for more details. Supported by Kuna Food Service.
Right around the corner, and that means it's the greatest time of the year again. The NFL season is here, and the best way to play your daily fantasy.
Dan and Rocchio here, Randy Karraker with the day off, but we are lucky enough to have in studio right now Derrick Goold of the Post-Dispatch, longtime Cardinals beat writer. Derrick, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's kind of cool to be back in here. It's been a while since I was in this studio. So
you were doing what back then?
The Sunday morning baseball show
with Chris Duncan. Or was Chris on it?
Chris was on it, yeah, occasionally, and then it was Brian Stahl was he and I kind of started it.
Okay,
here, yeah, back when the station first took off.
Well, welcome back.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for coming in and doing this.
It's good. We've all aged pretty well here, me in the studio.
Speak for yourself.
Well, you were talking about it. I hope you don't mind sharing this or me asking, but you were saying how your son was actually back in here. You have a photo of him pretending to be a radio host, and now you're wearing a USC hat.
My dad hat, yeah.
Yeah. So explain why you're wearing that USC hat.
Because my kid's going to USC, so just first, what a time to go to school there after the win against LSU, right?
Yeah.
But so he's off freshman in college, so we're kind of wrapping our heads around that. But yeah, it was interesting walking in here because I have photos of him pretending to host radio shows right over there in that corner. I also have a video of him like making a song where he just the lyrics were "I love donuts."
Same.
It was just over and over again.
So what's he studying?
He is studying film at USC. Yeah, it's very exciting. Very exciting.
You got your own little Steven Spielberg.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be really interesting to see him get the opportunity of a lifetime to be there in Hollywood at just a remarkable school and see what he makes the most of.
All right, well, Cardinals are back in town for a 6-game homestand, and they now have won 4 of their last 5 series. So, of course, when you're looking at things for the playoff picture, seems like it might be a little bit too late, or is it for this group?
Well, 22 games remaining and 3 teams to climb over. And the problem for the Cardinals is, as you said, they just went 4-0-1 in their last 5 series. They've won the 2 extra inning wins in Milwaukee gave them, back-to-back series wins against the Yankees in Milwaukee. No small feat. They're 6-4 in their last 10 games. However, the 3 teams ahead of them either went 6-4 or better. So they actually lost ground in the standings despite the strong stretch. And, that works against them in both ways. Obviously, they fell behind, but the biggest deal right now for Atlanta is that there's fewer games on the schedule. Like every day now that the Cardinals and other teams play, the team ahead in the standings has a dual advantage. One, there's one fewer game, and they can win it, right? So as the clock ticks down, it's just going to be really difficult for the Cardinals to make up that ground unless one of those, actually more than one of those teams, plummet. The added wrinkle is they play each other. So you know that two of the teams ahead of them are guaranteed wins while games drip off the schedule too. So that's a bad combo.
Well, you're saying there's a chance.
So yeah, there's a slim. I mean, we all were there through 2011.
Right.
We're going, this is bad, but there was a chance there. We'll see.
How would you characterize what the season has been? I know that's very
disappointment.
Yeah, open-ended. But what from your perspective, just your thoughts on the season?
I mean, it's a disappointment in a lot of ways. The offense should be better. Should be better than this. There's just no reason why it shouldn't have been going into this year. You look at the ingredients they had, and they had the potential to be a really balanced and potent offense. They had all the right pieces of a really strong offense. When you look at two guys who'd finished first and third in the MVP as recently as 2022, you had the left hand. I cannot stress enough how important left-handed balance is for a lineup and what a left-handed hitting group does. For the course of a season, but particularly in October, and they had a really fascinating blend of that where, you get the on-base percentage of Donovan, the likely mix for OPS from Lars Nootbaar, and then the pure slug from, Nolan Gorman. Now, Alec Burleson has carried his part of that equation. He's really blossomed this year. But, as we talk right now, Gorman is in the minors, and Nootbaar had injuries, right, that kept him off, and he's really never had that long stretch to maximize or manifest his potential. Brendan Donovan's been really good here recently, but that group didn't happen. So you had the two pillars who struggled, and then you had the lefties who didn't come through, and it just completely unplugged an offense that was supposed to be. I mean, when you sat in spring training and looked at the Cardinals, it was not a reach to say the offense will be the strength of this team.
It was the strength.
Yeah, the offense should be the strength of this team. The pitching rotation should be better and steadier, that it should be the bedrock of the team, and then the bullpen be the wild card, and everything flipped around, right? The bullpen was the strength, and they needed it to be. I mean, if that bullpen is not elite, we're talking about a way different season, like just a catastrophic season because of all those close games. So I think it's a riddle because their offense should have been better. But in that way, it's a riddle that's easy to solve because we all know why the offense struggled.
Would that be the two pillars?
Yeah, I mean, if your stars are paid to be your stars, and we're not, and to point to me a team like the Yankees, if Aaron Judge slumps and Juan Soto slumps, are not the Yankees. Like that, it's pretty. I mean, that's baseball, right? And the Cardinals are in a different spot than, say, the Dodgers in the sense that, financially, right? They can't just paper over the absences. But even the Dodgers, without Shohei Ohtani, would be different, significantly different.
What do you think happened with Nolan Gorman?
It's a great question. I think with, for some of these young guys, there's the sense that they have to go 5 for 4 every day to stay in the lineup. And I think as the standings started to slip on the Cardinals and the urgency took forth, it's natural for a team to say, we got to play the guys who perform or are expected to perform the most. And Gorman, at that point in time, as they were starting to play better, but still the standings were slipping away on them, was striking out a lot. Mm-hmm. And, that goes to both how he was being pitched. They started opening up some of those holes that he had closed and take advantage of them. Some of that was clearly, pressure to perform, and it was really weighing on a lot of the guys, and they were changing or chasing performance as opposed to chasing process. And I think he got kind of caught up in that. He had a really good stretch. You think about the team coming out of Philly, right? Philly had a really good series, goes into Houston, and he kind of found like an approach at the plate and a mentality, and he'd been working with a guy, and he like had a sense of, okay, I am starting to learn who I am as a hitter. And it seemed like a few weeks later, or within a few weeks, I should say, opponents said, yeah, we know who you are as a hitter too, and we're going to attack that. And he just didn't adjust, and the pressure mounted, the playing time diminished. All of those factors came into play.
Now, this will be kind of a hard question to answer because obviously you're not the one who's doing the roster construction here. But as I'm looking towards next year, I'm trying to figure out what will be so different about this team. I mean, what can you do? What can you move? What can be the moving parts here?
I mean, how dramatic do you want to get? I mean, I thought that it was very interesting that they hot-wired this roster for a quick teardown. Like, I thought that was like a real interesting subplot to last year's winter, is that they just set it up so that if they wanted to, it was a game of Jenga.
And you're talking about like Lynn and Gibson and these guys that are on one-year deals.
Right, or Ryan Helsley, who's about to have an expired contract. Paul Goldschmidt, whose contract is expiring. I mean, just up and down the lineup, you could make the case that that it was a Jenga roster, right? They could pull out whatever brick they wanted. If they wanted to fine-tune, do it at the top. If they wanted to make a quick reset, they could do it at the bottom. I thought it was really fascinating how they set up this roster to do that. And then that continued, right? Like you mentioned, Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, these guys are on, they have options for next year. Steven Matz and Miles Michaelis, they could be moved. They have only a year remaining on their deal. Ryan Helsley, who could command a lot of attention, has 1 year, of control left. If the Cardinals really wanted to cash in, they could have traded him at the deadline, similar to what the Yankees did a few years ago with Chapman and Andrew Miller. And you look at what the quick turnaround was for the Yankees at that point in time, and they still have players from those deals back in 2016 that are playing for them now. So, I was really intrigued by the fact that you could do that with this roster, and I don't really think that that has changed all that much, except for they have not proven to be a team to do something that dramatic. But you could refresh this team with a few moves. I mean, you add a hitter via trade, this team looks a lot different, and they've done that.
What do you think of Goldie? Your thoughts on him coming back or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be a fascinating conversation. I think in a lot of ways the Cardinals and Goldschmidt are best for each other next year. Unless Arizona Diamondbacks are interested in a first baseman and Goldschmidt is interested in going back there, that could happen, right? But I think in a lot of ways, Bill DeWitt has talked about legacy players. You know this, Dan, and fans might wince at that because it's part of the conversation for that extension with Matt Carpenter, right? A little years ago, it was like, get the guy, keep the guy, have him finish his career. Mm-hmm. And they do want Goldschmidt to be a part of. They see he's got the MVP. They really would like to obviously have more success with him in October. They like his fit, his personality. They like a lot of what he brings. And I think a lot of things he does behind the scenes fits really well with who the Cardinals want to be, right? Like,
and I don't think
baseball guy. Yeah,
people don't know that because he's kind of quiet outwardly, and you just don't see that.
Yeah, and when we try to tell the stories of those, when we try to tell what he is doing behind the scenes, they don't seem to latch on, and I'm not sure why. I mean, they're difficult to pack into a tweet. They're more nuanced, right? Like they're more I don't know how viral a story of him changing how they teach base running is going to be, but sure, that's true. That happened, right? Like that is something, or how viral it is that he's hanging out with some of these young guys, but he's not really a vocal guy. He's more let's talk baseball guy. And so I think, there's a really good fit there for what the Cardinals want to be. And if he's going to, his contract has, the rules are that if he takes a reduction in salary of a certain amount, he has to become a free agent first. This, you guys will recall Adam Wainwright went through this. It's the contract.
20% and all that
yeah,
stuff.
it's the contract that Adam Wainwright wrote on a napkin, right? And that's where Paul Goldschmidt is he has to become a free agent first. Now, they can agree and be all set and everything like that, but he has to be a free agent first, and it'll be a question like, well, what other offers could he get? But what value does he place on, look, I'd rather be with the team that I know as I try to come back from this than go to a whole new thing and have to start new and try to reset.
Just a final thought. I know we need to go to a break on this. Do you think with his recent surge that has anything to do in their mindset as to whether or not they're going to bring him back? Do you think they've already made their mind up?
Oh, no, I don't think they have. I think there's a lot more variables in this. I mean, look, like this, how does this season go? Like, I don't want to put so much emphasis on 1 month. I'm a big believer that you have to look at the whole thing. But with the Cardinals and where they're at right now, you cannot ignore the fact they can try to, they can say it, but I think from our perspective, covering the team, and maybe from a fan perspective, you cannot ignore the fact that if they have a losing record, it's the first time they've had back-to-back losing records since the 1950s, since Dan Musial was at first base. And look, they can poo-poo that and kind of toss it off and say, well, that's trivial and everything. I don't think it is. I think that's their brand. Don't do that, right? And if they do that, I'm really eager to see what the reaction is. Like, if the reaction from the team is such that it's kind of cool and, data driven and pragmatic and conservative and said, well, things didn't go our way this year, it's volatile, or we had some injuries, right? And if they do that, or they go, look, this is a problem. Back-to-back losing seasons is a message. Lack of attendance is a message. And I don't know if they've decided which way they're going to go with yet on that. So how could you know what direction they're going to go with one individual player?
We're going to take a really quick break here, and we'll continue this conversation with Cardinals beat writer for the Post-Dispatch, Derrick Goold. Make sure you can get your text in. If you have any questions for Derrick Goold, you can text into the Air Comfort Service text line. That is 314-399-9646, 314-399-YO-HO. We'll continue this conversation with Derrick next.
It's time for a DraftKings at Casino Queen Redbird report on 101 ESPN.
Brooke Grimsley here for your Redbird Report. The Cardinals are back in town for a 6-game homestand starting tonight with the Mariners. Eric Fetty will get the starting nod for the Cardinals, and Bryce Miller for Seattle. First pitch is at 7:20. The Cardinals have now won 4 out of their last 5 series, 2 against the Brewers, Twins, Yankees, and split 4 with the Padres. Their next 4 series are against sub-500 teams in the Mariners, Reds, Blue Jays, and Pirates.
The Redbird Report is presented by DraftKings at Casino Queen. Play, stay, dine at DraftKings at Casino Queen.
Welcome back to the opening drive. Brooke, Dan, and Rocco here, and we continue our conversation with our special guest in studio, Derrick Goold of the Post-Dispatch. Derrick, we are so glad to have you in here today to talk about the Cardinals.
Yeah, great to be here.
This is such a treat for us.
Yeah, it's good to see you guys.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Dan. Long
Good
time
to see
no
you.
see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is.
Been around you forever.
Yeah, we were talking about that. Someone goes, I wish I could remember where it was, but we were in Yankee Stadium, and I saw a couple of folks that I know from hockey, from the Rangers and stuff like that. And they were talking about, man, I remember when Dan McLaughlin was doing blues stuff and everything. I was like, I remember it well too. They're like, didn't you do blues stuff? I'm like, we all got our start with blues.
A long time ago. Yeah. I go back to the even before Joel was hired. I think I was doing that stuff. Yeah. Who was the head coach before Joel? You had Keenan, and then it went to, who was the interim? And then,
oh, gosh.
I can't remember the interim. But anyway.
Somebody's shouting at the radio.
Oh, the
right
good
now.
times that we had.
Jimmy Roberts, was it?
Jimmy Roberts was behind the bench for a little bit.
Yeah, he was an interim, right?
Yeah. I ran into a bunch of guys last night. You would have enjoyed it. I emceed the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, and Kelly Chase went in. And it was like a turn back the clock night for me.
Nice.
It was Brett Hall was in attendance. Tyson Nash was in attendance. Twister was there. Jeff Brown was there. Yeah, it was fun. You would have enjoyed it.
That would have been good. Yeah.
Let's get back to the Cardinals just for a moment. So we had a lot of people that are curious about Mo and his future. And even Mo said to Frank Cusimano, he said, there might be a little Mo fatigue in town. Mm-hmm. You know, he'd said that a few months ago. Just where are you with Mo? And he's got a year left on his deal, and just how fans perceive him, they take him in, where he's at right now, how it reflects on ticket sales, if at all. Because I don't buy into that. I think you go to a game because you go to watch either the Stars play, and that's why you're there, or you're there just to enjoy a night out, or the team is winning, and winning brings people to the ballpark. Yeah, I don't think you go or don't go to the ballpark because of who's in the GM's box.
Yeah, I would add that not just winning, but like a team that kind of captures the imagination, Ken, like, because you know, the Cardinals had an amazing series of events in 2022 where it was two great players playing great, right? Arenado and Goldschmidt. It was a team that was winning, but it also had Albert Pujols' chase for 700. Mm-hmm. You take away the winning, and the crowds are still there because Albert Pujols is chasing 700. And there was like a lot of buzz around that team. It captured the imagination, is the phrase that I use. And, you know, so I think a team has to do that. It can't just crank out the wins, because we've also seen some teams that were really good here and they didn't sell out a playoff game, and that caught everybody's attention.
Yeah, but they were still getting like 30, 35,000.
No, they were. You know, it's all relative, right? Like. I mean, I was in Milwaukee this past week, and they had two games where they had 20,000.
Exactly.
Right? Okay, that's a first-place team. That is a great fan base. They are devoted. They're some of the best voters for the All-Star game. They work, you know, like the other teams in the division, they just outvote them in the All-Star game. Mm-hmm. So they're really committed, and it's really nice. And the team does a great job of, like, kind of generating interest, but they still sold 20,000. So it's all relative, right? Like, the Cardinals are still doing well when it comes to ticket sales compared to the first place team in the division, right? But you asked about Mo, and so I'm a little skeptical of fans who don't go to the game because of the president of baseball operations, right? But I do understand that they may not go because they're disenchanted by the team and not just the record, or they're disenchanted by the direction of the team, or they have some fatigue for the team. Like, you know, like, where's the... I empathize with the fact that maybe there's not that player to captivate and energize them for the future. Mason Wynn should be, right? Mason Wynn has that ability, and maybe if they saw more of him, or if it was on a better team, he would. But you see these young players around baseball that just invigorate the fans, right? And the Cardinals have had their young players arrive, but other than really Mason Wynn, they haven't had that star take off. And I think that's what's lacking. So you can follow all those tributaries that are contributing to kind of the fan malaise, the fan apathy, whatever you want to call it, the empty seats. You can trace those all back to messaging from the president of baseball operations, comments from the baseball operations, and moves by the baseball operations. But I think the malaise as a reaction to an individual in baseball operation, I'm a little skeptical that that's the reason.
We're getting a lot of great questions in on the text line, and we'll be sure to get through a lot of these questions through the course of the show when we have you here in studio, Derrick. But here's one from the 3 and 4 that kind of plays into that with Mozeliak. How much pressure do you feel Mo is directly feeling/facing, and how does the past 2 seasons impact his remaining contract?
A lot. I mean, the pressure was palpable for me. In spring training, I felt like it seemed like a lot, like so much so that I know that the contract extension got a lot of attention for Oliver Marmol, but it seemed like that was a direct reaction, not to like extend him to guarantee him the next few years, but to almost quiet some of the pressure that was so apparent about the team. Like, all right, you have a guy going into the final year of his contract. Well, one way to alleviate this real sense of urgency around here is at least to commit to the guy, say, hey, look, we're committing to you beyond this year, and send that message to the clubhouse. I thought that was really reflected of it. He's got 1 year remaining on his contract. He has said repeatedly that he expects that to be the final year in this role. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's the final year with the organization, but his final year in that role, he has wanted to transition out of being the loudest and, in a lot of cases over the last few years, the only public voice, but the loudest voice privately in that room, to having more louder voices grow from his group, right, from his leadership group. We saw that start a few years ago. There was the attempt, right, when he moved up to president of baseball operations, and he said he had some projects that he wanted to pursue that weren't the day-to-day actions of the team. That really didn't manifest. He remained involved in the day-to-day of the team, and some of these projects that he wanted to pursue are still either delayed or under. I mean, you think about like the expansion of the facility in Jupiter and how long that's taken. One of the projects that he did work a lot on did get to completion. That was the purchase of Memphis and extricating that from a really tricky situation there to give that long-term stability as the Cardinals' highest affiliate. They don't own it anymore, but he was heavily involved in that. So he wanted to do that, and then has just been pulled back to the day-to-day. I get the sense that over this offseason, you're going to see that change as he facilitates whoever that is coming in and giving louder input into the direction they're going.
You've been around doing this a long time. We all have. It's jarring, the crowds. I mean, what's been your take? And when you're seeing that, I mean, it is jarring to see the empty seats.
It is really eye-popping, and it's following through on, and I think it's more widespread because I think, social media is just like distilled. It's not always reflective of the larger fan base, but it is the long-time threats of social media of like, we're not going to show up, now becoming real action. Consumer activism is real. I mean, it's hard. The visual of it is striking.
It really is.
The noise and lack thereof is striking. Players see it. Players have noticed it. I mean, it's hard not to. It's not It's not what St. Louis is known for, and because of that, it's jarring, right? And I think everybody around connects it to like, look, the fans are devoted. The fans come out. They sell a lot of tickets. That is the reputation of the best fans in baseball, right? Well, when the product on the field is not reflective of the brand they expect and they're not showing up, I mean, it's a direct line, right?
Circling back to the front office conversation, because obviously bringing in Chaim Bloom was something very different that the Cardinals did, because usually they like to promote from within. They're very loyal to doing that, which is fantastic, but it's been really rare that they brought in somebody from outside the organization with a different perspective. What has Bloom's role been, and is he somebody that maybe is going to rise to a bigger role in the front office?
Yeah, I mean, he may have that. He'll likely have that opportunity. The choice maybe will be his ultimately, and also, what does he want to do? I mean, he obviously was in charge of the Rays, then was in charge of Boston and oversaw baseball operations at both of those places. Does he want to get back into the day-to-day grind? Does he want to get back into the day-to-day minutia of running like the rosters and all that stuff? I don't know. I've asked him. He's a guy who really wanted to take this year to get to know the Cardinals organization. That was kind of his charge, right? Like audit audit the organization. Tell us where we're falling behind. Tell us where we have maintained edges. Find the places where we can improve. This has been, he's been at the affiliates, spent time in the Dominican at the academy there. He's been around the big league team. At times, he's struck up conversations with players, struck up conversations with coaches. I mean, he's not been very public. Probably the most public he was during spring training, and that's just because the fields are wide open, so you can see him. But he has moved his way around and through and kept in touch with everybody in the organization, almost like you would a high Fortune 500 consultant coming through. Right.
I'm going to be interested what they do with the minor leagues.
Oh, well, that's one of the huge things is like they have needed the minor leagues to supply over the last few years, and it has not been there for them. What do they do there? How do they look at that? Because more and more players are developing. I talked to Tony La Russa earlier this week, and I always remember him talking about how development doesn't happen at the major league level, right? Well, now it does. Like, you look at Jackson Chourio, right, and watch him play, and I think there's such a fascinating contrast between the Brewers and the Cardinals, of what the Brewers have done well and why they've been able to do well, and how it's possible the Cardinals will never be able to adopt that same approach. Like, it just might not be possible for them because of the pressure and the expectations that are on the Cardinals because of their fan base, and also because of their history. I mean, they just have a lot of history trying to press whatever coal they have into diamonds. They do produce players. They do produce players.
But then why don't they stick? And there's a disconnect maybe between the two.
Well, I think they do produce players, but and this is the conversation that I've been trying to have in the paper and trying to push it's not about the players who left anymore. Like that, those are all anecdotal and those are all fine, and those are lessons to be learned. The Randy Arozarena lesson should sing out to this organization. The Adolis Garcia, less so. Zach Gallen, less so. You had to trade for a guy, right? You had to trade talent, Alcantara and Zach Gallen. You had to trade high talent to get a player in. So I get that. Randy Arozarena, way different. Lane Thomas, slightly different, right? But the question shouldn't be about those guys. It should be about the guys you chose to keep. Like, they've had opportunities to trade these guys, right? The teams were interested in Newbart. Teams were interested in Gorman. They could have pulled off whatever Sean Murphy deal or whatever other deal they could have looked at. Or they could have packaged them all together and maybe tried to chump the Padres offer for Juan Soto. Who knows? Like, put them all together, put four of the best prospects, Gorman, Dillon, Walker, and Graceffo, put them all together and try to outbid the Padres for Juan Soto. You could have done all that, but they kept them, right? Why haven't they maximized? Like, the guys that you saw that were so valuable to keep and not trade, or to keep and carve out playing time for at the expense of these other guys you were willing to trade, amplify them. Why haven't they been amplified? I think that is the bigger question at this point. It's not about talent evaluation, because they've found talent.
Yes.
They've drafted talent. They've actually got talent to the major leagues. It's why aren't they producing for your team? And why, meaning not the players who left, but the players you kept.
Yeah, and it's fair.
That's a really good point. And also, you have on your podcast, which is fantastic, by the way, the best podcast in baseball, where you touch on this, kind of going back to within the division, a team and an organization that we look at that is doing a really great job of maximizing their talent despite the situations they're going through, is the Brewers. And so this is something that you've written about, you've discussed a lot. How are the Brewers really surpassing everybody in the division, including the Cardinals?
Well, they're innovative and they're creative, and they're willing to, and I'd like to get your all's thoughts on this too. I think they can act with patience, where that's like the word that I keep coming back to just in talking with
you talked about it earlier. It's different doing it here because you're pressed and you expect to win every year.
Bingo. Right. So, like, I always thought it was a really interesting lesson from the Yelich, Ozuna, Stanton era, right? That the Marlins were going to trade their outfielders. Everybody in baseball knew it. I remember talking with a Cardinals executive at the start of that offseason. I said, do you guys just open up an office in Miami, or how does this work? Do you guys just hang outside Jeter's office?
Right.
What it was? I mean, everybody in baseball knew. Also became very clear the teams that wanted outfielders, right? Mainly it was the Cardinals and the Giants. They went 1-for-1 through their interests, right? And Andrew McCutchen was the free agent who was available, right? And so the Marlins kind of set the table, as they should. We're going to trade this guy first and try to get that salary off the books, Stanton. We're not interested in trading Yelich. The Cardinals, we're most interested in trading for Yelich. That's the guy who fits us. We want that guy. And the Marlins are like, we get it. We like him too. We think he's great. We're not going to trade him. We're going to work through these other guys first. The Cardinals were in a spot where they needed a cleanup hitter. You guys remember all this, right? And they were really urgent to get one. And they did not want to go through that winter without acquiring a Marlins outfielder. They didn't really think going to free agent with McCutchen was going to be the move. And so when Stanton rejected an agreed-upon offer, the Cardinals and the Marlins had a deal for Stanton in place, and he rejected it. He had the right to. The Marlins were like, well, let's go to Ozuna. The Cardinals felt the urgency to not come out of that. The music was about to stop, and they didn't want a chair. They didn't want to be left without a chair. So they made the deal for Ozuna, thinking that Yelich was not going to move. Yelich was told he was not going to be traded. I talked to Christian about this. He was told he was not going to be traded, and he was actually gearing up and packing for Jupiter to go to spring training when the trade to the Brewers happened. And the lesson there that I was always struck by in talking to the Brewers executives was they said, we had the patience to wait to get the guy we wanted. And if the Marlins never traded him, fine, that's okay. We go into that season a little differently, and we try to find another way to contend. But the pressure on us was way different than the Cardinals, who felt they had to get that move to contend, to have to be from the beginning. If we go down a year, it's a little different, right? If the Cardinals step back a year coming out of the year that they just had, they just can't. They had to put the gas pedal down. They couldn't wait for the right guy. So the patience paid off. Now you flash forward this year, right? And it's not the same circumstance, but it's the same word, patience. Jackson Churro is struggling. I mean, he was struggling. 20-year-old, first major league season, big contract. He was struggling. And what do? They didn't send him down. I talked to Adam McCalvey of MLB.com, who covers the team. He said if they had a better option, they may have optioned him out. But they didn't. They kept playing him. And when he was at his low point, he started 56 of the next 58 games. And now he's on a tear, and he's going to finish in the top 3 for Rookie of the Year. And you guys saw the games. He is an exceptional player.
Yeah, he's figured it out
at 20. And he did it because they stuck with him. They showed patience. Now compare that to where the Cardinals were with their top prospect.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, Jordan Walker was lost, and he was hitting 150.
What was it? Well, Jackson Churro was hitting.
I understand that.
He had a lower on-base percentage than 300.
Jordan Walker was pulling off everything, and then maybe they saw something different with him, with Churro, that they felt he could fight through at the major league level. Well, and I'm not sure that they felt that way with Walker.
What they had was they had other people performing, and one of the gangbusters offense.
That's the other part of it.
So
you can hide him.
They could be patient with a guy, whereas the Cardinals were not getting the performance offensively and had to make a change. I mean, that's a big part of it.
We'll take a quick break here, and we'll continue this conversation with Derrick Goold of the Post-Dispatch. That conversation will continue next year on The Opening Drive. Hey everyone, it's Brooke here, and this year we decided it was time to make a major upgrade to our home by updating our bathroom. We have this house in U City. It's over 100 years old, and we love it, but we don't exactly love our main bathroom. So we decided to reach out to one of our great sponsors here of 101 ESPN, and that is EMB Granite. EMB Granite's team, it came to our house for a free consultation, and they came up with a vision of how to really transform our bathroom. My favorite part of working with EMB Granite was stopping by their amazing showroom to explore their large selection of in-stock custom countertops, all their different cabinet options. Of course, I loved picking out the new colors for our bathroom, and Jen was the one who was working with us, and she is fantastic. You have to go visit her. They have so many great ideas over there that will really fit within the budget that you say, and that's what they've been doing there over at EME Granite for over 20 years, turning visions into realities. So schedule your free consultation by calling this number, 314-645-9300, or go online at emegranite.com, or stop by their amazing showroom today and make sure you mention that I sent you.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. After their day off yesterday, the Cardinals are back in action tonight as they start a 3-game series against the Seattle Mariners. Last night there was NFL football as the NFL kicked off. The Chiefs walk away with a 27-20 win over the Baltimore Ravens to start the NFL season. Tonight here on 101 ESPN, it's the Packers and Eagles. That game is from Sao Paulo and Brazil. And then on Saturday and Sunday, we have a full college football and NFL slate right here on 101 ESPN. That is your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Welcome back to the opening drive. Brooke, Dan, and Rockyo here, and we have a special guest in studio today, and we are absolutely enjoying it. We have the Cardinals beat writer for the Post-Dispatch, Derrick Goold. Derrick, it's been such a pleasure having you in here, and you've been doing a wonderful job of answering a lot of the questions. And I want to circle back to something, because you talked about this with the Brewers, and especially how they're able to have patience with their players. But then also earlier, you spoke about how the Cardinals maybe kind of hang on to players for a little bit too long in that evaluation process. Dylan Carlson is the most recent one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
What happened with Dylan Carlson here?
Well, injuries were part of it. I mean, just the timing of them. That's just the straight up truth of it. You know, you think about back to spring training, right, and how he was really coming on strong like the last week, actually longer than that, probably the last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks of spring training, with an opportunity to be the center fielder while Tommy Edman was coming back from his injury and was not going to be available for really, as it became clear, the first half of the season. Dylan played well. Dylan was providing a lot of what would have been a really nice kind of compliment there for the lineup at the back end of it, and he was playing strong in center field right up until being, colliding with a teammate there in Arizona on the 11th hour of spring training. The Cardinals make that pit stop in Arizona against the Cubs, and that's where Dylan is injured. Just the timing of it. And then he came back. He was not at full strength when he came back, was clearly limited as he was trying to play to not lose the opportunity that was there for him. I mean, that was really a lot of what was driving him. but then the performance didn't match. And then you had Siani with the defense and how well he was playing. And so now all of a sudden, yet again, the playing time evaporated. And, time and time again, the Cardinals have found themselves in a spot where they have too many players for the same spot, and not one of the players taking the spot to answer the question. And so they have to kind of make a move to simplify things, right? I mean, that's just been the story of the last 8 years, is the outfielder who's traded to simplify the places elsewhere. I think for Dylan, lots of talent. Obviously had tried to add strength and everything to his game and hadn't quite gotten there yet. But at significant points in time when he was about to get the breakthrough or the long run of playing time, an injury that he had no control over happened.
What do you think about payroll next year? Fans are curious about that, and then obviously as an effect on what you do and how you spend and what the team looks like. What are you hearing about payroll next year?
So this year the payroll went up, and it's probably going to be the biggest payroll they've ever had. In over $200 million for the first time. And early on in this season, they got the payment from Bally, from Diamond Sports, their rights, their broadcast partner. They got the full payment, and it was very clear that they were going to get that, despite what's going on elsewhere in that area. Next year is not a guarantee. How this all plays out. It's going to pinch teams. It's going to pinch the finances. It's going to slow one of the biggest revenue sources for a lot of teams. What they had counted on to be a torrent of profit is now going to slow to a trickle for a few years, and then it's going to be back to the torrent again once they get the streaming thing figured out. But it's going to have a few years of difficult time for teams, maybe difficult time for fans, but it's going to pay off for both of them down the road very clearly. That's going to be a factor in 2025 that it was not in 2024. You look at some of the length of some of these contracts. We talked earlier about how they really have like a get out quick. They have an ejector seat or two on their roster. Some of that is financial too. I think I'm really eager to hear, and this will be something that will certainly be talked about, and they'll have to articulate at the end of the season, is how do they go, all right, we base a lot of our payroll on attendance and ticket sales. We had that slow down. But one of the reasons why it slowed down is because of the team that then needs spending to improve. So at what point in time do they look at the roster as you have to spend to get the people back? And how do they look at that that equation?
It makes it interesting, though. You could roll back a rotation of Gray, Fetty, Michaelis, Matz, Palante. I mean, that's conceivable going into next year.
What Gray,
so you'd have Gray,
yeah,
Fetty, Michaelis, Matz, Palante.
Yeah, you could. I don't know how you. I mean, I don't know how you don't bring back Kyle Gibson. I mean, just like he means so much to this team, and he's been here for 5 minutes, but he's just like he just means a lot to this team and to those young guys. And you can't go into last year and say, well, we needed to add leadership, we needed to add, and then this year go, well, we need to delete leadership, we need to delete. Yeah. I mean, I just don't know how that if they don't do that, it is such a clear unless they have a better explanation. But my first feel would be if they don't take that option for Kyle Gibson, it is such a clear and easy money-saving move akin to not bringing back Colton Wong. I mean, it's just such a clear cost-saving move because he means so much. And he's pitched exactly as they needed him to.
I think he's been better than what they thought.
Oh, okay.
Than what I thought, for sure.
Well, yeah. No, maybe I had higher expectations. I think Kyle Gibson has been exactly what they needed. He's been excellent. He's a guy who he helps in so many ways. And I'm not just like going, he's a Mizzou guy. So that
there you go.
No, I think like just watching him interact with the team and then watching him do what he's done on the mound, such a guy who brings balance to the force, with this team, that if you don't bring him back without an explanation, like maybe there is some great explanation, maybe there is, but the first read would be you are really trimming costs.
Were you surprised to see Steven Matz getting that start the other day? And also, what were you hearing about evaluation-wise with Lance Lynn? Because I think we're waiting to see if he's going to be back into this conversation.
Yeah, he'll be back. He'll be back in that conversation imminently. He probably get a start. I was not surprised that Matz got that start. Maybe somewhat the reason, but I understood it once the explanation. To get Fetty that extra day made a lot of sense. And I get it, especially as Fetty's now cruising into unknown territory as far as in the majors, right? He's surpassed his previous high for innings in the majors. Now he pitched, overseas more, but this is the first type of grind at this level that he's gone through. So I totally get it. Then they had to sub in Matz, and Matz had put in the longest rehab assignment possible to get right, and had a chance to then show what he would been working on, not just health, which I thought was really interesting. Like watching him go out there and not just prove health, but prove
changeup was exceptional the other night.
And the
really good.
Curveball,
Curveball was really good too.
Curveball was non-existent for him before, and he goes out there and starts getting strikeouts with it. And I talked to him at length about that, and he's like, I made that very clear early on. He told me, he goes, when I was on my rehab thing, I wasn't going to throw a cutter till I got this curveball. I was going to hold back my cutter and not rely on it till I got this curveball. And so I think that was good. Lance Lynn threw a bullpen in Milwaukee this weekend. They got to make that decision as to when he's going to return to the rotation.
Awesome.
Derrick, it's been so great having you in studio.
Much,
we really enjoyed it. A lot of great texts coming in, too, of people saying how much they enjoyed having you on, and they want you on more often. Yeah. So we're just going to keep booking you.
Okay. Thanks. It's nice to be back
big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. We get you a free cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I brought my own coffee today.
Oh, well, forget that, too.
We'll get you another USC
Dispatch tumbler.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Derrick.
Thanks, guys, for
doing this.
And, of course, you can see all his work on the Post-Dispatch, and he has his podcast, The Best Podcast in Baseball. That is Derrick Goold, the Cardinals beat writer for the Post-Dispatch, and we will wrap the show up coming up next.
gonna rock! End roll.
Let's rock. Let's rock today.
Hey, again, our thanks to Derrick Goold of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch for coming on in to 101 ESPN. And we have your shot to score a 4-pack of tickets to next Tuesday's Budweiser Bash, Cardinals and the Reds at Busch. Final Bud Bash game of the season features a limited edition Chris Carpenter bobblehead giveaway. And, Matthew, do we have a...
Trivia question? Yes.
Yeah, or are we just going to...
No, I got a trivia question.
Let it rip.
2004, obviously, everyone remembers that Cardinals team very well. Chris Carpenter won 15 games on that Cardinals team. In fact, he was one of 3 starters on that team that won 15 games in the regular season. But he did not lead the team in wins. Who led the 2004 Cardinals in pitching wins?
All right, text in to win those Budweiser Bash tickets with the right answer. Thanks to Budweiser for hooking us up with Budweiser Bash tickets to giveaways all season long.
And thank you to Brooke and Dan for this week. You guys did great.
Great job, Matthew. Great job, Brooke. It was a lot of fun. Our thanks to Derrick Goold. That was a lot of fun. And we've got a balloon party coming up?
Balloon party coming up. Yes, we have a balloon party
party
coming up on 101 ESPN. And everybody else, thank you for listening and have a great weekend.